What's up, my fellow poker enthusiasts? It's Rene, aka the Wacko here, and together with my co-host Adam Carmichael, we present to you the Mechanics of Poker podcast. In this podcast, we deconstruct high-stakes poker players, figuring out what it is about them, how they think, what they do that makes them so successful, with an extra focus on the obstacles they faced and the skills they had to develop to surpass them. Over the years, me and Adam have gained a lot of experience in both reaching high-stakes poker ourselves and teaching other players to do the same. We have bundled all this knowledge together in our coaching program, the Mechanics of Poker, which is the most complete poker coaching product on the market. If you want to have a chance to work with me and Adam so you can get unstuck and make more progress in your poker career, go over to mechanicsofpoker.com to apply. But without further ado, let's learn from another high-stakes player's journey in today's episode. Welcome back to the Mechanics of Poker podcast. Today, we will have a chat with high-stakes poker player Kayhanmok Mokri. Kayhan worked his way up playing online and live cash games, but got a big boost in bankroll when he managed to chop the 10K scoop main event, which allowed him to settle down at the highest stakes permanently. He more recently also got involved, maybe that's also where you might have seen his name, in the live poker scene, and not without results. He had a great trip to the Bahamas at the start of the year, final tabling 3 events and hitting a 100K mystery bounty. Afterwards, he also final tabled the Triton 250K, and more recently becoming 4th, 2nd, and finally 1st, playing the high rollers at EPT Barcelona. The thing that Kayhan mentioned that sets him apart from the rest of the players is his lack of fear and the ability to take risks, which we will dive deeper in during this conversation. As always, I'm joined with my co-host, co-mechanics of poker coach, Mr. Mindset and Performance, Adam Carmichael. Adam, I'm curious, is being fearless something you either have or don't, or is it trainable in your opinion?
That's a good question. I think how we feel fear and respond to fear is somewhat based on our character traits and is somewhat defined. However, how we perceive that fear and how we deal with fear is very much trainable, in my opinion. So yeah, very interested to dive into Kayhan's story today. He's someone who identifies as a fearless person who takes risks. So we'll dive into what he's been able to learn from his own pursuits and some lessons that the audience can go away with in terms of their own ability to take on more risk.
So it's more your perspective and how you label the fear that kind of determines the action that you take?
Correct. Yeah. I think everything's malleable, and the fear is almost like how we feel internally in our body. How we perceive that by the mind will then magnify or lessen that. And then how we deal with that fear is based on that interpretation of that. And whether we move into the fear or move away, there's still a massive choice point there to work with. So yeah, be interested to see how Kayhan relates to this, whether he has fear at all. Maybe he's just one of those guys who doesn't feel the fear response, therefore he's got nothing to work with. But most of us feel fear, and we need to figure out ways to step into it.
Very curious indeed. Before we start today's podcast, I would like to give a big shout out to our sponsor, GTO Wizard.
We are proud to announce a technological breakthrough. Introducing GTO Wizard AI. This powerful technology can solve any custom poker spot in seconds to high accuracy. Unlike pre-solved solutions, this allows you to edit the solving parameters. That means you can modify the ranges, change the stack and pot sizes, customize the betting tree, and automatically simplify and optimize your bet sizes. Brace yourself. The meta is about to change.
So sign up to GTO Wizard using the link below, gtowizard.com/mechanics. Get 10% off on your first month and join the weekly coaching webinars, of which 1 per month is with me. Really looking forward to educating you guys there. But without further ado, let's get into today's episode. All right, Kayhan.
Hello.
Thank you for coming on the pod, man.
It's a pleasure.
And I believe I first got familiar with you a couple years ago. I was doing Twitch, streaming on the 500NL Zoom streets, and I was regularly playing against you. I remember, from what I recall, you were a player who would not give up the pots without a fight. And I was curious, like, has this aggressive style always been your natural inclination towards playing the game, or is it something that you learned through working your way up or to maybe studying the game that this was a good approach?
Yeah, so I remember those times. Those were good times. It was like right before COVID or right after, I'm not sure. Yeah. I remember coming into your stream, trolling and writing some comments and things. Yeah.
Yeah, I do recall, yes.
That is like my MO, like write things in chat and have fun at the tables. Yeah. No, I almost forgot the question. Yeah, no, I've always been a guy who's like learning by doing, preferably playing by against better players, and I found out like being a more aggressive than like more passive is like the better route to go, because you learn a lot of like things when you're being aggressive. You see where like people's tendencies are, you see where they're afraid of calling, or like not afraid, but just like you can use like a lot of bluff spots where people overfold a lot, and like you can use that to your advantage, because when you're in the same situation you can fold more. And like my whole strategy on 500 zoom was redlining. Like basically I was losing on blue line and winning on red line, because people were just like automatic playing like auto faults and playing too tight, like because they knew they had some recreational would like pumped off a stack after anyway. Like it was probably not the best approach, and I wouldn't do that today, but at that time, right after COVID times, it really seemed to work out very well, except for like against Bonk, who would overcall and Davy Jones, because these guys were aware that I was doing this. But all in all, it was a strategy that worked well at that point. Like I was doing very well at the 500 zoom, because people were just overfolding for some reason, and it wouldn't stop.
And you never had this quote quote problem yourself that you were naturally leaning towards, because it's a general pool tendency to overfold and under aggress, but you seem to not struggle with that. Was that like something that ever since you started playing poker came natural to you, or was that really like a strategical adjustment, like, hey, I believe this is kind of what the pool's doing, so let me actually be very aggressive?
So the thing is, I started playing at poker like, I would say, so I was playing as a recreational, as a student around 2015. Like I was playing like, let's say weekly, and I was a student, and I was playing very splashy, like live games, where being aggressive like was like almost you had to be like, you had to fight for pots, and there was a lot of freestyling and this and this and that. So I think after a while I just understood like people's fear of money and losing money just like became like a thing I wanted to exploit as much as possible, because especially like deep in tournaments you can see like people play very differently when it comes to like, because a lot of players say that like the money doesn't go to their head, but 100% surely it does, because it even does with me. And I'm like, maybe like not that afraid of losing money, but it still like affects everyone. Like if you have a big piece of yourself, or you're playing like a very big game that's very big to you. And so basically I'm just trying to like use like a strategic advantage by like finding out where people are weak and not, and just try to use that to my advantage as much as possible. Maybe it became like a bit like what do you say, like in general, like in the 500 simple, this is how it worked and this is how I do it. I could have maybe adjusted more against other opponents, but like, yeah, so this just became like my way of playing for many years. Like I would say from 2018 till mid 2021, I was playing over aggressive. I'm probably still playing like a bit too aggressive, but like it's way, I can give up bluffs now. At that time I wouldn't give up bluffs. Like I would
Yeah,
just,
you've
yeah,
added more nuance. You punt
yeah,
enough in spots where you're like, I think this spot though, maybe I should stop punting here, basically.
yeah, basically. And you played a lot with me, so you understand like I'm gonna take my spots and I'm gonna find bluffs where most people don't, I'm just gonna play. But now I've been working a lot on my game since COVID. But during COVID, when I was playing 500 Zoom, it didn't help me that much, like using solvers that much, because people were just doing the same. They wouldn't like move on. They would just, you had these typical regs. I'm not sure if I should name names, but like maybe, for example, Sanctity, you remember that guy? He would just like never bluff and just call too much. So, you could just make a few adjustments. So I was basically just overfolding and over bluffing, like for, I would say, 2.5 years of my career.
Which
like
is,
from
I
online.
would say, is a good strategy. Basically, whenever people show weakness, you attack a lot, and whenever they show interest in the pot, you're like, "Hey, I'm
Yeah,
out."
basically, yeah.
I actually remember. I don't know if you remember, but when I started streaming, I had various tags, various colors, and people were always trying to debate like what the tags were. And I remember you were the purple tag, and purple tag
Yeah.
is listen. If this guy sticks money in the pot, don't try to rationalize it too much. Just be like, this guy probably shows up with something funky. Fuck it. I mean,
Yeah, I remember asking about this purple tag maybe like 10 times and you would never tell me. But good to finally know,
exactly.
yeah.
But at some point, people were like, and some people made it sort of their job to kind of figure out, and they slowly start to see patterns like, hey, this I remember it was like a Kenyan guy and Mokri guy. They all have like the same tags. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
Sancti has the same tag. The other guy has the same tags. Like, okay, yeah, they have certain tendencies that make me tag them a certain way.
Yeah, that was the thing. I remember. I think it was Sanctity who had the same tag or something. There was some guy I really, yeah. Now
You
I'm
were
being
like,
very rude.
you were a bit,
Yeah,
offended. Like, why the fuck does he
yeah,
earn the same color as me?
yeah. I was like, maybe, yeah. I'm not expecting like a top best drag color, but I'm like, come on, man. Come on.
No,
It's
yeah,
like, yeah,
it wasn't tagged on. It wasn't like tagged on ranking or anything. It was just like certain tendencies that would lead me to tag a player a certain color, so that it's, you know, when I see blue, when I see purple, when I see yellow, there's a automatic sort of train of thought that goes into my head, like, oh, this guy is purple, and then it's kind of an accumulated way of, okay, this guy is purple, so he probably, you know, approaches the game in a certain way,
yeah,
like
but you know,
Mokri
I
style.
do. I do the exact same thing. Like I have certain tags on people who have like their tendencies, which I think though it's not like it's that way, but it's something I think and how they perceive me as a player. You know,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm very well aware of my image. Many people don't think so, but I'm very like well aware of what people think about me. You know, so when they think I overbluff too much, I'm probably just gonna like without them even realizing, I'm just gonna like adjust all the time. You know. So
Yeah, which
that's
is
like the
actually
thing.
it's actually a very good style, especially if you play in a pool that's overly passive. You'll naturally be very aggressive, but then there's a couple guys who approach the game a bit more like you as well, and they also fight more for pots. And if you can spot those, then your image actually can play in your favor if you know, change some things up in your strategy.
Yeah, so especially in live poker, you notice very quickly who's who and who's doing what and who's not doing this and who's like talking to you and who which way they're talking to you. You know, you can get a lot of information. I'm always friendly at the table, trying to talk to everybody, you know. But like it's not like I do it for strategic reasons. I'm just doing it to keep myself like entertained and like try to have fun, you know. If for me, if it isn't fun, I'm not being I couldn't sit there for like 12 hours playing day one of the like 5K main event. It would crush my soul. So if I can't have fun, I'm probably not going to do it anymore either, you know?
Yeah, and I think
So it's,
especially also we heard this actually a lot throughout various guests that we had on the pod who said, yeah, especially recreational players, they're there to have fun. So part of your job is also to have fun with them, right? If they don't have fun, it's like you said, if I don't have fun, I don't even bother. So a lot of players have the same mentality. So then if no one has fun at the table, then people stop showing up, which is obviously not great.
yeah, it's like this thing though. Like I played some private games all over my like up in my career, and like if everybody's drinking and if everybody's straddling, and you're like one of the few pros, you know what you have to do. You follow the line. You just do the same thing because like if you're there to sit and like grind out last EV of every single spot, it's you know people are not interested in playing with those types of people. The thing about me is that I've always been able to adjust to like make people like you and be liked at the table. Some people just might actually not like having me there at all, you know, because I can be like very like talkative and like
Yeah,
maybe a bit annoying even, you
it's a bit
know.
more polarizing, right? If you put yourself out there, if you have a strong character, there will always be people who dislike that.
Yeah, obviously. And this, you know, this is the thing. Like you can't be liked by everybody, and you gotta like try to make it fun for you and for them and try to make it enjoyable for everybody. You know, that's the point of poker. You like recreationals are not coming there to try and win every pot. They're trying to have fun and learn the game, you know. And they think it's fun to play with pros who give them like the attention kind of in a like if you know what I mean. Like it's not like you can, if they ask you about hands and what did you have, you can just show them and tell them, like, they want to see those things, you know. And I don't
Yeah.
mind at all, you know. This has been always my, like, I think, best quality as a poker player. Like, I'm not that serious all the time. It's like when I'm playing online against the best regs, I'm probably not going to do the same, but you know what I mean. It's like,
Yeah,
it's like,
you understand how to read the environment and adjust to the environment, like a chameleon. You know, you blend in nicely. You provide.
yeah.
Would like to see you provide. You actually mentioned this as one of your qualities that actually set you apart. You mentioned that from other players, which is being a nice guy and fun to be around and to play with. And you also mentioned that you don't care or look for small edges everywhere, as that can hurt you in the long run.
Of
Right?
course,
This
like,
is something that you mentioned. I'm curious, like, how has that benefited in your career, and how can players acquire these skills?
so the thing is, it's not like I'm trying to do this. This is just how I am as a person, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been, like, very including and just, like, trying to be nice to everyone, and, like, you know, just make it fun for everyone, because this is why we play poker. Okay, we play to make a living, yes. We also started playing the game because it was fun. You know, you have to go back to the roots. And if you can't keep this same motivation about something, or, like, do it the way you used to do it, you're going to get bored pretty quick, you know. If everything is all about strategy and just, like, exploiting your opponent for 0.1 bb, you know, it's just, I mean, this is not what especially in live poker. I'm talking specifically about live poker now, you know. If you're playing, like, very tough games, yes, you have to compete, and yes, it's very strategic, and you have to be, like, very focused, yes. But I'm talking, like, sports, specifically about live games where you're trying to have fun. And the way this has benefited me is, like, people want me in their games, you know, because, okay, everybody starts drinking, everybody starts straddling. Oh, they want to change the game to 5-card PLO or whatever. I'm always in, you know. In the beginning, I was torching money in this game, you know. I was just torching, but I was winning in the no limit game, so I was just, like, giving action on both ways, you know. This is just to, like, make it more fair, you know, like a fair playground, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, let's say a professional basketball player is, like, playing with one hand against a guy who's recreational, if they're playing about money, basically.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
No, yeah, I get what you mean, and I can definitely see how this definitely in the short term might cost you maybe some EV, but in the long term, it will definitely gain you a lot of EV. But I think the main takeaway here is that maybe we should stop thinking about EV all the time and also think about maybe the bigger picture. That's kind of the message that I think you're trying to tell.
Yes, correct. I've always been that guy who's trying to see the bigger picture, you know. I see all of these guys using, like, hours and hours in solvers, and I've always been, like, the guy who's been like, okay, what is the best way to learn? It's like by doing something in practice, right? Okay, you're going to lose a little bit of money in this lineup, for sure. But imagine how much you're going to learn, you know? This was like the Phil Galfond strategy of how he learned poker back in the days. I don't know if you follow him on Twitter, but he said a lot of things about this. He used to battle, like, players he maybe knew was better than him, or at least put it up as an advice.
Mm-hmm.
Because you learn a lot of, like, things maybe the solvers can't teach you, like where they deviate and where it's good to deviate and where it is good to use, like, a basic knowledge of the solver. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yes,
it's also very different if you see something in a solver or you're being put in a situation by someone, right? It has the complete experience. You see the hand, you sort of see what the solver does, but you also have the experience of, like, oh, this is a pretty annoying situation to be in, or like, oh, this guy owned me pretty hard here. What's going on? So you have the full experience. It's like 4D instead of 2D.
Yes, correct. And then it's like, okay, solvers are good for, like, purpose of, like, understanding why it does in, like, in the equilibrium or whatever. And then, yeah, of course, it's a great tool. But I see, like, I don't know how many guys I've talked to from, like, let's say Norway or all over the world, and they're just, like, sitting there playing, like, 100 Zoom, and they're, like, trying to implement, like, deep solver strategies. And you know what's the most dangerous thing about this is, like, they don't know how the strategy actually works in fully. They try to use one part of it there, and they're not sure to what do on turn and rivers. You know what I mean? They're just,
Yeah,
like,
they just execute something on the flop or on the turn without thinking about, okay, for example, a hand can take a certain line on the flop because it has certain benefits on how you then can play turn river. But if they just copy the flop and then on the turn they butcher it, then like, okay, well, if you're going to do this on turn or river, then maybe you should not play the flop in this way, because part of the EV of this flop play is what you do on the river. That's kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, and instead of like using simplified strategies and then learning from that instead and see how people react by, so I don't know if you remember, like, let's say 2020, early 2020, it was like people were using a lot of 1/3s, you know, a lot, like a lot. Nobody was over betting flop, no one was potting the flop, nobody was betting big and checking. It was like a lot of like 1/3 sizings. I don't know, you remember this, right?
Yeah.
This was like a very big thing. And then once people started realizing like they can bet big and check, the problem has become like many players just like bet big with their entire range instead. What they don't understand is like you're supposed to check sometimes. This is what makes this strategy good. Like,
yeah, the fact that you get in the check line. Yeah,
you know, you have like this much check and this much big bet. But people just tend to like, oh, I've learned this. People do this. I'm gonna do this all the time. You know, this is
yeah. They learn a trick.
Be balanced. Yeah, they learn a trick or two, and they're trying to be balanced, but they're just like not at all. You know, this is the problem.
Yeah, and especially like you should always think about, okay, what kind of consequence does my strategy have to his range? So, for example, there's many strategies that can be plus EV. So let's say you do use a strategy where you open a lot for let's say you open a lot for min raise and follow it up with a lot of small betting. Okay, that means that on turn river, the range that we will face will still be quite wide because you only min raise pre and you only bet it small on the flop. So being a bit more aggressive on a later street and fighting for pots, bluff catching, bluffing, it's going to be important. Whereas if you open 4x and pot every flop, then the range that you face on turn and river is probably going to be a bit more tighter. So I would imagine less significant over bluffing. So you could use that strategy, but then if you do that, your river fold should be higher in the 4x pot than on the min raise small bet. Then you should obviously fight more on the river because his range is wider. So this is kind of like an example of consequence of an earlier street strategy. It can be good depending on how you play the later street.
Correct. It's not like this strategy is better or this is better or whatever. It depends on like your opponents and how well they adjust and everything. But this was what you said there was basically my strategy throughout 500 Zoom. I had 85% C bet on flop or something crazy. And then I had like, I would say 66% continue on turns for like 75% or over bets, you know? And this was just like, because the range was so wide when they called the flop 1/3 and you would just like win a lot of immediate, and they would more or less raise too much when they had it. And when they didn't have it, you could just like, yeah, they were playing very capped on flop most of the time, you know. Some players were not, obviously. Some players were.
Yeah, some players were like, "Hey, this is Kayhanmok. Let's slope a little bit more," you know. But like again, this is like, okay, you might then donate some money here and there, but the correct strategy versus a very aggressive strategy, like the one you're explaining, is very hard to execute because usually, if you would no lock then in the solver, it says fold 0. Well, nobody folds 0. Right? That's impossible. Like, guy significantly over bluffs. Oh, fold 0. Yeah. Still, you see people folding. So the correct counter exploit is not made.
Yeah. So the thing is, you still have to put money in the pot. You know, people are like, they put their emotions through their money. You know, it's like, it's still money. You know, they see like let's say when you're playing NL10K, you're losing a car if you lose a stack. You know, it's like, it's not small money. Still have to put money in the pot, you know, and that's the thing. People are trying to be as robotic as possible, but still there are emotions. Like you see, like the richest guys, they tend to have like a very well balanced thing, like money control when it comes to this. Leave their emotions out. But if you see a new guy just start playing these stakes, you can hammer hard on this guy. You know, it's like the new kid on the street and. Yeah,
not all let's see how comfortable he is when I put him to a decision for a nice car. Let's see. And then the hero coach was like, okay, well, this guy has earned my respect.
Yeah, it's like very polarizing, this thing. Either they're just gonna call you down no matter what, or they're just gonna fold too much and play a bit tighter. You know what I mean? It's like, it's very rarely in the middle, but it's like usually one or the other.
This
I
is also the
feel
thing. Like I know you also play some heads up, but in a ring game, it's also, let's say for example, I would play in a game that's very big and maybe not the most comfortable, but I have to play the game because I don't know. Let's say there's a couple of recreationals, but then you're also at the table. Then it's very easy to also be like, oh yeah, Kayhan is gonna overaggressive. Fuck it, I'll just fold and wait for my hand against the other recreational player, right?
it's the easy way of living, you know. It's like people are. So the thing is, like like for humans, mostly they like to live comfortably. You know, everything is like all about comfort, and you know, if you know by like 100% certainty, like if I fold against this guy, I'm gonna get his stack probably by the end of the night. You're still gonna do the fold if you knew 100%. But sometimes you have the ego thing, like, oh, I'm so annoyed. I don't want to get pushed around anymore. I just gotta get him. You know, these things matter. I know people say they don't, mostly because most people won't admit it, but these things really do matter. Like, okay, this guy bluffs too much now. I'm done with it. I'm gonna get him. You know,
Yeah,
this is the
I feel like especially live. This is I feel like online,
live.
especially
Yeah,
modern day online, is more like, oh well, I have this combo. I have to call 33%. Let's roll the RT.
yes,
Well, I rolled a call, and it doesn't matter
yeah.
what Mokri was thinking in terms of, oh, I'm gonna put into a decision or did blah blah. He's just like, oh, this is probably frequency call. Let me frequency call, move on. You know, that is a bit more where poker's moving. Where live is still very much more
Correct.
emotions
So
involved.
yes, correct. And when you're playing online poker, you're playing against top 0.1% players in the world, probably even less. Like I would say most of the 200 Zoom ranks are like top 0.5% players in the world, like maybe even maybe 0.2. These guys are getting so good, all of them. Like they're getting very good. So this is
But
like
good
the
in
state.
but then for example, maybe if you put them in a live environment where there's more chaos, then
Yes.
maybe their strategies fall apart. Because that was an interesting point that actually I wanted to touch on, because the modern day trend is more like, okay, poker is very complex, right? And
Yeah.
the solution is, let's simplify the game tree, let's simplify everything so we can make it a bit more graspable. Where you're way more, it feels like you embrace way more this complexity and kind of embrace the chaos and play way more of a complex strategy. So I would just say, how are you able to execute a complex strategy, and what, in your opinion, are kind of the ups and maybe also downsides of this approach?
So the thing is, when I'm playing online, let's say I play like a three-handed game, 25-50 or whatever, I'm gonna start playing like as close to good as I know, you know? Like there are certain things that I don't know. There are certain things other players don't know, you know? I do use my time in solvers. I'm not like a complete freestyler, but the the comparison is like the online games are very tough. You're playing against very, very, very good players who have been studying a lot, who has, you know, they've tried and they've played so many hands, you know, they have the experience. So the difference is like I try to play as well as I can, like closer to the game tree when I'm playing online. While I'm playing live, I'm trying to like, okay, where is this guy? Is this guy a super professional? Is this guy like a mid stakes reg? You know, it's like you put them in like categories. You know, who is this guy? What is he gonna do? How is he gonna react? How is he? How does he like see me? Does he think I'm too aggressive? Does he think I'm too tight? Or you know, is he just kidding around? You know, this is the thing. You got to like in live. You got to kind of find out who's who, and you have these super serious guys live as well, especially in the high rollers. These guys are so good, man. They're just so good. And then you have to try to play as good as possible. But you know, I'm trying to compete and I've always enjoyed it. And I think by doing this, I'm learning like way quicker than most people. This has been like you learn way quicker. You see what they're doing and you adapt and you just like, oh, maybe because the thing is I try to not criticize plays before I kind of understand how they work, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is something I could implement or this is something I shouldn't implement, you know? This is so it's like a lot of learning by doing. And basically I was battling Davy Jones and Nacho for a long while on 25, 50, and 51. And you know, I got crushed by Davy like Davy Jones, especially, he just crushed me. Like he really did. He just destroyed me. In the 3-handed format, he was just way better than them. And from the 500 Zoom days, he was still just way better than the rest. He was just always been very good. And I think he has something on me, and he just knows like how to adjust against me very well, especially him, I would say.
So would you then say this is also a quality that you see in like better players, that they just, you have a certain game, and like you said, everyone's game is flawed in a certain way, and maybe he understands a flaw in your game that maybe you don't understand, and he capitalizes on that, and that's kind of what sets better players apart?
Yeah, so the thing is, I have to say, I played against, I didn't play that much against Linus, but I played some, and I played a lot with David Jones, a lot. And I would say those two guys, they just know how to adapt very well. You know, they're just like, and I played button clicker heads up too, and that guy, the same thing. Like, they just know, you know, they've played so many hands, and they just know how things work, and they've seen my, I'm assuming they've seen my player type so much, they just like use like a very like, let's say general strategy like I would do on 500 Zoom against me. I would say I had more of those leaks before, like maybe a year ago, but since then I've been just like trying to work a lot on my game, because I was noticing I was struggling a bit on the highest stakes. So the last, let's say 6 months, 1 year, I've been working a lot on my game and trying to like, okay, if I really want to compete both online and live, I kind of gotta
step up your game in certain areas.
I was getting lazy and entitled, and like, you know, I was getting very lazy. I must say, I was getting very entitled. I was getting attention, and I was, you know, and
like, I made it now. You know, I'm here.
That's the thing. You know, and the thing is, like, I did very well in a couple of tournaments, which has like boosted my, let's say, financial situation a lot. Which compared to many cash regs, they just grinded it up. Like, I grinded it up too, just like them. Honestly, I really did. And then but I jumped like through the stages quicker, I would say, because of those like tournament scores. But you know, I mean, there is some luck in this, but like, yeah, if you play enough tournaments, you're gonna get like the EV from that too.
I mean, it's also interesting that you mentioned like, okay, when I play a tough lineup online, you try to play more like the solver game tree, but that's also because the better your opponent is, the more solver considerations become relevant, right? And I feel like in your decision making, this is something that a lot of players get wrong, and this is something that you do very well. And I guess that's also how you transition well between online and live. The first thing you have to ask yourself is, oh, who am I up against? Because depending on the answer to that question, your train of thoughts should go either down one direction or the other. If you're indeed up like against a GTO Wizard, then by all means follow the solver. But often that's not the case. So then you have to ask yourself more, well, I know how theory works. Like I said, there is a lot of value in that, understanding the solver, understanding how theory works. But then it's way more, I understand how theory works. This guy is screwing up either too much to the left or the right, and I should now start adjusting, right? That's kind of what you're explaining, and something that you say that maybe, especially at the lower stake Zoom pools, people are just following the solver too much and not really thinking about these type of things.
Yeah, so Master Dog has said this before. I remember watching some of his videos. That guy's an absolute troll, by the way. This guy is an absolute troll, but I find it very amusing. But yeah, so he said, like, I remember him saying, like, okay, you can try to play a strategy that you don't know how it works, or you can try to simplify against weaker opponents and just like earn the most money in every situation, or the way you know is the most money. Because more often, I wouldn't say more often than not, but I mean, say if you're playing against very weak players and those things, you just like simplify, you know, because they're just gonna play like very weak compared to you, and like, yeah. My point is just like, people are very like, oh, solver, this, that, the blah blah blah. Yes, the solver is very important. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying, like, there are many situations where you're just like not doing the best thing, and by not doing the best thing and trying to play like a solver will mean also that you forget to exploit. You know, like exploiting is a big part of poker still. You know, even in 2023, it's a big part of poker.
Yeah, it's in my opinion, it's kind of the thought process that you go down if you work a lot of solvers. your thought process is often led by, I have to now do this, or they face something, what do I have to do? And then they think about what would the solver do. But the first thing you have to take consideration, well, what the fuck? What kind of range am I actually up against? Let's start think about that. What the fuck does this guy actually have? And then actually what to do will then come quite naturally based on, I think he's quite strong here. Or, I think he's quite weak here. Or, maybe I should just bet very big with this hand in my vacuum because I'm playing against a guy who's, clearly approaching the game different than a solver.
Exactly. It's just like, I think people are just trying to feed their egos by like, oh, the solver did this, so I'll do the same. And then they go in and the guy is like probably drunk on a Saturday night playing 200 Zoom, and he's gonna call you down, and you're bluffing, and you're going, oh, I played it good. No, you did not. It's like,
you didn't see, you did. It's you only isolated the piece of the information in a puzzle that's way bigger than the actual piece you focused on, which was, well, I have the best unblockers, I have the best blockers, let's go. Where the puzzle is a little bit bigger.
Honestly, like the best players in the world are the guys who like have a very good 50-50 balance of this, Like I've said this before, like these guys who I talked about, like Davey and Linus and Barak as well, he's so good. Like, and for a long time, I thought he was like very tight, but the kid is just brilliant, He's just very smart, and he understands these things. Like, and these guys understand these things because they see like the bigger picture.
They think about different things. They take different things in consideration at different weights than you are taking in consideration.
Exactly, and if you're gonna become like the best player in the world, you gotta like use like it's gotta be finessed, It's like, okay, solver is one thing, but what about this? People overfold here, even though the solver always calls, it's just like because people think they underbluff here, and they're using like these like general thoughts and like how people perceive the game in their advantage, and this is what they're supposed to do. They're just like, like I said, seeing the bigger picture, generating more,
I like that,
and generating more money and like more EV in like, and honestly, it's super smart. That's how it's supposed to be.
I mean, there is let's say, for example, you start, and at some point the solver can definitely help boost your game, but then there's a phase beyond the solver, sort of.
Yes, exactly,
which you have to reach, which at some point you have to just let go.
Not everybody can't remember what the solver does 100% of the time. It's not possible. It is literally impossible to play as a solver. Even in chess, these guys, like you have Magnus, like the best player in the world. Like, dude, he confuses people, in the beginning, because he just plays like something they're confused. They don't know about this because they studied probably something else. And then he just puts them out of their comfort zone. Like, putting people out of their comfort zone is like where you're going to see them at their lowest most of the time.
So then, like, Stefan is like the Magnus of poker?
Oh, dude, Stefan. Oh, don't get me started on this guy. Oh, my God. This guy just... I mean, I don't know how many times I've played with this guy, but every time I'm done, I needed an aspirin. Because he's just all over the place. This guy is just... And I played some heads up with this guy, and he's just all over the place, man. He just has like 15 different moves. But honestly, I would say the guy is pretty smart. He does that, yes. He just puts people out of their like comfort zone and he's been trying these things for years, He knows how people react and how he's going to counter react, But if you meet him in the wrong mood, the guy is just a beast, He's just going to be like playing very well. And he's like a super exploit but no theory guy. He's like
he was here, then the theory helped him, and he went beyond, but he went beyond.
That guy is, I would almost say crazy. I don't know, but I do not want to live.
I mean, the line between crazy and brilliant, it's a thin line.
Yeah, it's a thin line. Yeah, obviously.
I think I saw a video on one of these YouTube channels the other day. There's like, he showed a hand, played at 10 NL, and then they were making fun of. But then he suddenly said, "But actually, this was a hand not played at 10 NL." but at 40 KNL. And now suddenly it became an interesting hint. Whereas at 10 NL, you thought, what the fuck are these guys just dunking around? But
Is that
no, it was
MMA
actually playing at 40
Sherdog?
KNL, and then it was suddenly amazing.
It was MMA Sherdog who posted that video a long
No,
time
no,
ago,
I
right?
think it was it's either this two-card confidence, I think, or the finding equilibrium. One of the two that made like this comparison.
Oh,
And,
okay.
and I think the main thing was that they at 10 NL, you can see the same hand at 10 NL as 40 KNL, but the difference is obviously the reasoning or the thoughts that went behind the hand.
Okay, yeah. So it's like it looks like a 10 NL hand, but
Yes.
it's like 40
But he
KNL.
did a great edit, so definitely shout out. Maybe I can put the link somewhere or something. But also, I thought it was very well done. It's like suddenly the transformation, but this was actually at 40 KNL. But like,
Yeah, but
it's quite interesting. Like, for example, what Stefan does, and kind of go full circle what we talked about earlier. If he uses certain strategies that make your range in a certain way that you're no longer very much aware of what the ranges are, but he's perfectly aware of what the ranges are. And in the end, if you're very much aware of what the ranges are, you can make great decisions. So if he every time maneuvers in a way that he knows your range and his range perfectly, and you have no fucking clue what you're doing, like I said, you need an aspirant, the chances are quite big that you will screw up and not him, because he knows.
Yeah, I remember being at the Bahamas. I just like played some. I think I just made fourth in the 25K, so I had like a lot of stars balance, you know. And then suddenly I see Stefan in the 10K lobby, heads up, and I've been practicing my heads up game for a long time, you know. I've been battling like against the best. This is how I've been learning heads up. This is by. Then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna play Stefan a little bit, you know. And we go railroad crazy, man. We play for 10 hours straight. I'm sitting there in on my MacBook, like at the Bahamas, playing Stefan, and we're just writing shit to each other on the chat, and we're just going back and forth and blah blah blah. And then he just, at the end, he gets very upset and just writes something. So like the guy is he just has 10 different moods, like, you know. I don't know, but he's a super funny character, and I always enjoy playing with him because you always have to think, you know. It's not like this and this and this and how I'm gonna construct my range and blah blah blah. It's like, okay, dude, it's like you raise the button, he calls, and the flop is like 10-10-3. He just leads out one big blind. All of a sudden, you can just lead out one big blind, and you raise him, and then he insta clicks you back, and you click him, and he clicks you. You know, it's just like a freestyle show out of dimensions. The guy is just, and he makes it super fun to play. He's just like super humorous and like, yeah, it's always fun to play with him. And even in 6-max, man, it just depends on which mood you get him, you know? He
Yeah,
has, like,
so basically he has 10 different strategies, and they're all related to 10 different moods. So he wakes up, just puts his feet out of bed and like, which mood am I in today?
Yeah,
I'm in a click at mood.
Yeah, and you don't, and you know, you can say a lot of things about the guy, but like all of the strategies are like good. Like it's not like super just dust all over the place. He's just like, he's really thinking, you know, and he has already made up his mind, kind of. He already knows what he's gonna do, and I think this comes from like he's like an OG of the online streets. I would say now.
Yeah, you have to learn this. There's he's definitely OG. I remember when I was mainly playing high stakes. I think he was just moving up actually.
Yeah, he's as I would say, he's pretty good. Yeah, and he's one of the, like, you would say, like, not like the norm, you know.
Yeah, no, I think everyone agrees that he's not the norm. Yes,
but he's also one of the biggest winners on 6-max of all time. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he's I think he's a pretty intelligent guy. Let me just put it like that. Yeah.
So unlike popular advice, which is usually nowadays, no, you know, you have to study population, you have to game select. These are usually two very important things, especially the game selection one. No, you have online poker stuff. If you play in tough games, you can't win. You clearly took a different advice, a different route, right? You said playing against tough opponents. You kind of explained the benefits of that. But in order to jump in a game with Stefan, you need confidence, right?
Of course, yeah.
So how does one gain the confidence to decide to jump in those games?
You know, it's like all over my, like, let's say low points and high points, it's always been all about like competing and just trying to like evolve. Like money comes and goes in a certain way. You can always make money. This is like the thing. Like gaining the confidence of playing like these against these super good players is like it comes from a way. No, it comes from a place like, okay, what do I want? Do I want to get better, or do I want to like stay in my lane? You know, when do I want to evolve? When am I gonna try? You know, and if you don't try and fail, you will never get there. You know, it's like you have to try and fail. Everybody's done it. I mean, if you look at the top 10 pros in the world right now, they've probably tried and failed many times. You know, you just don't know it. You think it's like been all this. It's probably been like all around this too with them, you know? And yeah, you know, I was at some point and I was like, okay, I think I can do it. And then I tried and I failed miserably, maybe I would say 3, 4, 5 times, you know, even at the highest stakes. But then I always took like, okay, I took a breath and calmed down and then I started over again, you know? It's just like, but at some point you just start to stabilize yourself, you know? You start at the end, you stabilize yourself. You're like, okay, this is what I did wrong that time, and now I'm not going to do the same mistake, you know? And you just learn from every process. You learn, you
Yeah,
know?
so it's important. The learn is important, right? Not to just jump in, not learn anything, jump in, not learn anything, because this is not the way to improve.
No, it's like I remember being like the guy who was like everybody was like, okay, this guy's just a punter, blah 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 blah. I remember these stages, like at the highest stakes, like people were thinking this obviously, and it was certainly true because I was just doing like a lot of minus EV things. I was playing heads up against button clicker, flying llama, you know, as like you know, I was doing these things, but you know what? This made me good enough to beat other players now, you know, and they would play me at the same stakes. You understand what I mean? Like, okay, I gave away some EV, but I learned a shit ton, and I got friendly with them, you know, and they, you know, and when you get friendly with people, they tend to help you as well, and you try to help them, and it's like a two-way street.
Yeah, you
But
you
then
make
I
a
understand
relationship, right? Relationships are usually two-way.
exactly, and if you're nice to people and they're nice to you, it's a friendship, you know. It's like I would say that is a friendship. Maybe not like you're going to lunch every day or every week, but you know, you have a friendly environment and you have good players, and maybe they can learn something from me instead. Also, you know, like
And
the way I think.
if we follow then like the theme of what you've been mentioning, the bigger picture, in the end, the quality of your friendships kind of determine to a certain degree the quality of your life. And if we go very big, the end goal is to have a good life, right? So
Exactly, you know, and the thing is, if we're both learning from each other, it's a quid pro quo, and we're both gaining something from each other, you know, this is a win-win. People have like, and this is like a great thing, like having a good social network and being liked, and you know, and having some enemies too, you know. You can't be liked by everybody, you know. This is how the world works. And you know, it's the thing is, I think I've always been good at like understanding what other people do and implementing it myself, you know. I don't, I've never been a fan of books. I've never been a fan of like sitting in the solver 5 hours straight. This is not my thing, like, you know. And if this is not my thing, I think after a year or so, I would be very bored if I was sitting every day after a session, 2 hours there, 3 hours there. You know, it's just going to be too much for me. So instead of that, I'm just like chopping it down to like maybe half an hour there, half an hour there when I have some spare time. And I talk poker with very good players, you know, and hopefully they're learning something from me too. And maybe from the live aspect, I can learn them something, you know. It's a quid pro quo thing. And, you know, it's like, yeah, this is also how I see the game, like from learning against better players than me, and mostly by playing them. You know, because most of the time there's going to be one or two players better than me, but not all of them. You know,
yeah.
so how much am I actually losing here? You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, especially if there's a big spot at the table, you're at least guaranteed plus EV, and then given if you lose some, and then you can learn against the other. So you win against him, and you learn against the other. Great situation.
and I'm losing now. You know, maybe in a year I'm not losing against the same guy anymore. You know what I mean?
And that's because you're playing in this game. And I think often, especially lower stakes, I'm sure there's a lot of players who listening with quite some admiration because they struggle themselves of trying to accumulate the confidence to take another step. Now, usually what them players do, I would say they feel like a certain fear. They try to prepare away the fear or study away the fear, right? Gain more knowledge just to remove that fear. Whereas you embrace more the fear. You mentioned that, I mean, two beliefs, core beliefs that definitely came back is like abundance. You said you can always make money. So losing the money, you have a clear belief. Listen, there's no scarcity there. You can always make money. And you interpret failure as an opportunity to learn. And I would almost say you interpret it as a necessity to learn. I remember, I think there's a book, I think I got this from a book, Confidence Gap. They say the act of confidence comes first, the feeling comes after. People often wait that they feel confident in terms to jump into the game, but it is actually through jumping in the game that you gain the confidence to play in the game. So it's, you can wait all you want, but in order to kind of acquire this level of confidence, you have to take that leap of faith. And what keeps players from taking that leap of faith is then indeed fear, which you clearly overrided by the two beliefs that I think I pointed out.
The thing is, okay, let's say you're giving away a little portion of money. You don't need to give away 400K, you know? You can give away, okay, well, 10K,
so
20K.
proportionally, there we still have to talk about what is justifiable in terms of
you know, it's like, this is the mistake I did many times. Like, I was like, but then I started learning, okay, maybe I take smaller pieces in myself now. Like, this is something I've worked a lot on the last year. Because in the beginning of this year, I made like super sick amount of money. I made like I like crushed some tournaments at the Bahamas and some cash games in LA. And then I was winning so much. And then when the high roller scene started, okay, I remember talking with Adrian Mateos in Vegas. And I was like, okay, because I used to play some tournaments. I don't play much, but I played some, you know? And then I talked to him, like, because we were playing cash games every day, like a 1-2-4 game, okay, at Vegas. And then I asked him, like, what do you think? I'm considering trying to start, like, playing these, like, 25Ks plus, you know? And he was like, yeah, you should try. They're not, they're very tough, obviously, but at some point you're going to be able to handle your own. And yeah, and that's what I did. I tried. And in the beginning, it was very well, but then Triton came, you know, and I started taking very big pieces of myself. Like, I had big exposure, and I went on like a huge downswing. Let's say, like now in the fall now, and then I just like, okay, what did I learn? Okay, you need to study this more. You need to learn 20 big blinds. You need to learn 15 big blinds. You need to learn 25 big blinds. You know, you need to learn some ICM. You know, all of these things, because this is where the most of the EV comes from. You know, learning these things. And so then I took a 3-month break after EPT Monaco, more or less 2.5 months. And I started learning, like, okay, very interesting. I started playing some tournaments on a random Tuesday, just to like implement what I've learned. And I screenshot some hands, you know. I was always working on becoming better. So people have different ways of studying, but I was always like, I want to learn how this works, you know, and just, I'm always interested in learning. I'm a very curious man, you know, maybe not by sitting in front of a computer watching like how the sim works every day, but like watching like YouTube reels, like YouTube highlights of how like good players play, like, you know, and you learn a lot by like being interested and like having this like motivation, you know. So
it's also then the way you look at the rails, right? You don't look at that entertainment, but you look at it through a more curious lens. That maybe that way you can actually pick something up that someone else just, oh, cool hand, and that's it.
Because any way you think about it, like either way, some players are gonna have, and I mean everybody, they are gonna have some interesting things to say. If you just like strike them down, like, oh no, this is stupid, this is not how it works, you know. They might have a good point where you're just like oh no, I learned this, so this must be wrong, you know. You got to see it from both sides, you know, because there might be some truth in this and that. So I've always been like, okay, even though I don't think this is a great player, even I just still listen and just trying to let him speak. and then make like a okay and think about it a little bit. Okay, maybe this isn't that bad, you know? Maybe this is actually good, you know? Because most of the time, all players have some good things to come with. Like they have like some information you don't know anything about.
Yeah, they have a different perspective that you can actually learn from.
Exactly, you know? And this is like being like humble enough to like understand like, okay, maybe I am better than him, or maybe he's better than me. But if you just listen and try to see what they do, because they must be doing something right. They're winning money at poker, you know? I mean,
Yeah, so the question is not, instead of just being, oh, he's so bad, the question then more becomes, okay, he approaches poker in a way that from my perspective is not optimal. However, he is winning a lot, so probably he has a certain perspective that I can learn from. That's kind of that curiosity that you pointed out.
that's the thing. And even when I talk to my friends, I can say, oh, this guy just made a huge bad play. You know, I just try to like, I'm almost trolling them because I'm trying to like see how they react to when I tell this hand, you know? And then I'm just like, because I've obviously been thinking about it for the last half an hour.
Uh-huh.
And then it's just like, then I start thinking, oh, if he says, oh, maybe it's not that bad, maybe I need to reevaluate, you know?
Yeah, or you
You
can
understand?
ask yourself, like, when, under which circumstances is this play, under which assumptions is this play good? Because apparently he had certain assumptions that he made this play. So then maybe in a vacuum right now, how the situation was, that play was not optimal, but maybe under certain circumstances or certain assumptions, this play is actually very good. So instead of just butchering the play, you can say, under which kind of circumstance is this play actually very good, and can I actually use this?
Exactly, you know, and this is like a lot of poker players have big egos, myself included. I would say most of poker players, like especially like accomplished ones, have big egos.
Mm-hmm.
This is how it is because they feel like they're getting attention. They're like, "Oh, you're so good," blah blah blah. You understand, like, and it's gonna feed your ego, and this is just how it is. But if you just like sometimes take a second and just think, okay, what? Because you're not doing everything right. If you were doing everything right, you would win all the money, like every time. Not every time, but you know what I mean. You would just be like,
yeah, of course. Like your
you're
mistakes
printing.
are part of your win rate, basically.
Exactly, and then just like we're all humans, we're not robots, and you can study that solvers as much as you want, and it's a great tool, and I use it myself for sure, especially for this ICM and this short stack game. I've been using it quite frequently the last 2 months. And you know, you learn a lot of new interesting things about how it works. You know, if you just see a pattern, you see, okay, this hand does this, maybe then in certain different situation, this does this, and you know, it's like if you just look at something and try to learn what it means, it's just you understand. It's hard to explain.
No,
You've
yeah,
been playing poker for a long time, and you know what I mean, probably. Yeah.
yeah. Like I think you have an ability to grasp on concepts really well, and again, to make it a bit more holistic and look at it from the bigger picture. Like, you're not trying to study how 953 small blind big blind at 20 BB works. No, you're trying to understand how does 20 BB play different from 10 BB or 40 BB, and what are like the main concepts, like the main things that change in my strategy. And then there are certain aha moments, like, oh, 20 BB plays different from 40 BB because of these factors. And then you apply these factors in under the gun versus big blind on ace jack 10, but also small blind versus big blind in a limp pot on deuce deuce 4. Right? It doesn't matter.
No,
You don't have to study 1700 something flops.
No, it's like, you know how it is. We've been playing 100 big blinds plus since whenever, you know. And then it's like 100 big blind poker is very aggressive, and you call bluffs, and it's a cash game. The more tournaments is more about stack preservation and try to make like good adjustments, because playing like the game tree, like when you have 10 big blinds, 20 big blinds, 30 big blinds, it's very difficult. And with ICM, you know, it's like it's very different, you know. So you try to make more adjustments and simplify way more, because it's as
too big, the tree.
Say, yeah, it's too big and it's too complicated, and it changes too much. You know, it changes a lot with ICM, without ICM, close to the money. You know, it's like it changes all the time. So the only thing you can do is like make it as easy as possible for your brain, because it's impossible to consume all this information. It is impossible. You can say whatever you want, but it's impossible. There's no man alive who will ever be able to do this. And if there is someone doing this, they're most likely cheating, I would say. So it's like you got to make it as easy as for yourself as possible, and try to understand the concept instead of like trying to do whatever the solver does every time, you know? Because in that case, you might blunder more than you do right. And there was a point where I was just trying to like, I was studying a lot and I was trying to do what the solver did every time. And I was just looking and I was like, man, I fucked this up, I fucked this up, I fucked this up, you know, because I was trying things, I didn't understand the concept. I didn't understand anything. You know, I was just looking at it. I was like, oh yeah, this is what it does. I'm gonna do this. And
Yeah,
this is
so
like,
so not study it. Also it's very important when you go into a study session to think about, okay, what's my desired outcome? The desired outcome is not to learn what to do on this specific board. The desired outcome is to look for patterns and look for concepts that I can apply at 20 BB.
yeah, and just not 20 BB, 30 BB, 40 BB,
Oh,
100
yeah,
BB,
exactly.
150,
And then you might
know?
compare like these, for example, instead of studying a couple of boards, you might take the same situation at 10 BB, 20 BB, 30 BB, 40 BB and see, okay, what are common trends that change? And what is a concept that I can grasp from that I can just take in consideration? Like normally I do this, but at 20 BB, this concept for me is more important, so I'll do X. And it's not going to be right all the time, but generally speaking, you're going to be, you're going to be better off doing that than not.
Exactly. And then you have the jump from 100 BB to 200 BB, you know? And you see, if you played a lot of live games, you're very used to playing like 200 BB, 300 BB, you know? You're very used to this. And then you have all of these guys who are not used to this, you know? They don't understand the concepts. Like, and understanding ranges and understand how things work is way better for you, for your learning path, I would say, than to actually just like be focused on what it does all the time. Because people have this like great tool, but they use it in a very wrong manner, I would say. They're trying to copy it instead of understanding like the concept. Because some of like I've talked to some of like the best players in both heads up and six max, and they're saying like, yeah, we do this, but if you understand like the concept of everything and where people fuck it up,
you do something completely different.
Pound on it. Yeah, you just pound on it, you know? And you find some like, it doesn't even need to be a big leak, just small leak. It might even be a general leak like people have, and they just pound on it, you know? You just pound, pound, pound. If people fold to C bets too much, it's not that bad to over C bet, you know? It's that
exactly.
easy.
So that's again coming back like, oh, he does this. Oh, this is very bad. Under which circumstance is this actually good? Well, if people are overfolding, well, and then you can reflect, is that actually the case? Well, maybe against me, this hand was not played well because I don't overfold. But versus a general population, I can see why he makes this play. Again,
yeah, like
an example of how you can learn.
And you can see some of the like the absolute top players in the world, like Adamo and Linus. They're like two of the most aggressive guys. If you think I'm aggressive, they're just like all over the place, you know? They're aggressive in a different way. They're aggressive like in maybe a very intelligent way, where they know like, oh, he's gonna overfold, he's gonna do this, he's gonna react this, he's gonna react this way. You know, poker is very aggressive. People have a hard time understanding this. Poker is extremely aggressive, and that's how it's supposed to be. At the toughest like lineups and these things, people are going to be very aggressive. You're going to have to fight for pots. They're never going to give you most of the time not going to give you a free chip for no reason at all. It's just you're going to have to fight, and this is how it's supposed to be.
You mentioned like in terms of the solvers that they then look at it, but they actually will do so the other way around. I know you're friendly with Magnus as well. Do you see the same in chess, for example, how he approaches chess? They also consult the machine. Is it kind of the same in chess? Just out of curiosity, I know it's a little bit of a side way, but
it's like the thing I said. Like the thing is, he's like, I would say, the smartest guy I've ever met. You know, he's just like all over the place, very intelligent. You notice like when he sees something and he does it, like, and he just understands things very easily. And you know, and the thing I've never asked him about this because we don't talk much about chess. We talk more about other normal boy things, to be honest, not about poker that much either. But it's like, the way I've understood it, like he puts people out of their comfort zone. So it's all about skill, you know? He reduces variance this way. This is a way for him to reduce variance because he knows he's the better player. And there is some sort of like variance in chess too. Like if the clock is lower or whatever. Like classic chess is like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So he just tries to confuse people and take them out of their comfort zone, because when they're both out of their comfort zone, he will be the better player, because you have to use your thoughts and imaginations and theory all in a mix. Because if you have because some of these young guys are being like, they're studying theory very hard in chess too, I would imagine, you know? And if you put them in their lane, they're probably going to be like equal or maybe a little bit better or a little bit worse. So this is variance, you know what I mean? Depends on who's having the big day. But if you put them out of their comfort zone where they actually have to like, this is something they've not studied, you know, then you have to start thinking.
So you can have, let's say, for example, you have a default game tree, and then you can try to beat the other person by outstudying them in the default game tree, or you can just say, fuck it, I changed the game tree.
Yes. And this is
I get what you mean.
From what I've understood, this is what he does. He does this, like he just, and it's super smart. It's very intelligent. I would say this is like, it's like, and this is like a private game thing too in poker. Like, if you make the game like with a big ante or like 7 deuce or something, you have to start thinking. Stand-up game, you have to start thinking. You put people out of their comfort zone. So like even the biggest robots, they're gonna have troubles adapting because they're not used to it, you know?
They get an error. Like error, what the fuck is going on? Why are people standing up and not sitting down?
Exactly, you know? It's like, and this is
you
like
probably like that, in a live game, you see some online kids, you're like, okay, let's see what happens if I introduce this game. Now see what you do.
Yeah, exactly. For me, it's never been a problem because I've always been like the guy who adapts. I adapt to things. I see things and I say, okay, this is how it is now. You either learn it or it's like, you just have to learn it. Yeah, it's like, survival of the fittest thing, you know? It's like, okay, if you can't adapt, you're fucked. There has been times in my career where I've played big live games where, like, let's say it's not been very responsible bankroll management, and it's like, but I never show them that, you know? I never tell them, okay, I've always been there to fight, and if I lose or win or something, at least always I learn something, you know? I always learn something, and I know it's a good spot for me to take. Even though it didn't pan out this time.
Yeah, and if you lose the money, you can always make it back.
Exactly, you know? It's like, you don't have to lose all the money, but if you just like...
You need a little bit of money left to make the money back. So
exactly. So the best way to earn money is to have money, you know? This is just always been. And I just think like taking some risks when you're younger is like a very smart thing to do. And it's easy for me to say, man. I live in Norway, you know? It's like life is very comfortable here, you know? It's like, this is a bit different. But I'm not expecting a random guy from Colombia to do the same, and because the money he has is like quite important. Because
and also I would say rock bottom looks different in Norway than rock bottom in Colombia.
Exactly, you know, and I've always had good friends who've always been like buying my action or helping me when I've needed it. You know, it's like this has always been a good thing. I've always been surrounded by good people. You know, so I've been at rock bottom myself too, man. And even in Norway, that sucks. But you know what? Every time it happened, I learned something. And it was at younger age mostly. So it's like, it's not the end of the world to go busto when you're 22, 23, you know, it's not the end of the world. This is not the way for everybody. Some people are more disciplined and more like, but it also takes longer when you do it this way, you know? Most of the time, it takes longer. If you don't get a good bink, if you're a tourney player, if you don't get a good bink, you're just going to be struggling for a long time, you know? But it's also important to have a risk-reward premium, you know? It's like, okay, how much am I going to gain if I take this risk? How much am I going to lose? You know, these things, there are a lot of variables, and people have different approaches. But yes, I took some more risks when I was younger because I knew, like, okay, if I didn't make it, at the beginning, everybody was shattering this poker thing. My family, my friends, you know, everybody was like, why are you doing this poker thing? Blah, blah, blah. Why did you quit university? Blah, 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 you know? But at the end, like, okay, if it doesn't pan out, I'm just like, okay, they were right, and I'm doing something else. But if it does work out, that's a big fuck you to everybody, you know? So it's like, yeah, okay, so I made it. What are you gonna say now?
Yeah,
You know,
risk
and
reward was definitely worth giving it a shot.
yeah, and then I looked at it like from a very like, okay, I fucked up this time, we go again. Fucked up this time, we go again. You know, I'm not gonna let these people be right, because this was like the biggest motivation for me. It's like people were like, oh, this poker, blah blah blah. But now you see how people look at me differently now, because like, oh shit, he actually made it. It's actually quite cool, you know. So the whole motivation for me in the beginning was this: like, I'm not gonna let these people be right.
Hi guys, Rene aka The Wacko here with a quick Mechanics of Poker 2.0 announcement. In our program you will get access to 80 plus hours of content in which we will explain you all aspects needed in order to become a more successful poker player. Now one of these of course is the technical aspect of the game, in which I'll be explaining you all the mechanics behind poker strategies. We'll be talking about GTO, exploitative play, with an extra focus on the why behind certain strategies and why the population has certain leaks. And to increase your win rate even further, we've recently added a river bluff and bluff catching section so you can increase your EV when those pots become very big. Our mindset and performance coach Adam Carmichael, he took care of the mental game and performance section of this program, in which he will teach you everything you need to know in order to break through limiting beliefs, better handle your emotions, break free from tilt, and play your A game more consistently. And last but not least, we've added the management and optimization section in the program, in which we will give you various tips and tricks to make it more likely for your poker career to succeed, and how to continuously improve as a poker player. Now on top of that, this concept is continuously evolving based on feedback and suggestions we get from our community. Next to all this content, you will have access to our exclusive Discord community, monthly live Q&A calls, and one-on-one coaching session in which we are going to be reviewing if you have been implementing the stuff that we teach you in the Mechanics of Poker correctly. So do you think you have what it takes to master the mechanics of poker? Go over to mechanicsofpoker.com and maybe you will get a chance to work with me and Adam and make more progress in your poker career. But for now, without further ado, let's get back into more goodness in today's episode. Adam, leading up to the spot, you know, we always go through like a little bit of planning. I said, okay, I'll chat a little bit in the beginning. I'll give it over to you quite quickly. We're more than an hour in because obviously the conversation's been amazing. So my apologies for leaving you on the sideline. I will hand it over to you with a little question. We're talking about fuck ups. When in your career, do you remember a point in your career where you fucked up, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, so a rock bottom moment for me was probably when I was shot taking 1K heads up sit and goes, and I basically thought I'd break into those levels quite quickly. And the way that format works is you have the best players kind of guard the lobby. You play against them, reg battle in, and you try to earn their respect. And if you earn their respect, they will generally share the lobbies with you. So I was thinking, all right, a few weeks, maybe a few months, I'll earn my way in. And things got a bit heated, egos involved, and months and months and months went by with less and less communication with these guys. So first it's like Skype calls, like, hey, you guys like my game? Can I get in, so to speak? And then months were going by where we were basically just having an ego battle, and neither of the players wanted to back down. So I burned through most of my roll, about 75% of my bankroll, just burning through it like day after day, playing high rake. I had Supernova Elite rake back at the time, so I was getting a good rake back deal. But I remember thinking, there is no light in the tunnel. It was like 6 months into playing regs every day, and I was like, I need some light. I need some hope that maybe I can get in. So I remember having a few months from, it was June till August 2015, where I was like, maybe I've bitten off more than I can chew. Maybe I've went too far here and I need to recalibrate. So at that time I had to really do some analysis of my game and like kind of take my ego aside, stop the battling for a few days and go, right, am I being delusional here? Is this going to end well for me? And then, yeah, during that kind of analysis, I realized I felt like my game was strong enough. I felt like I was close to getting through. There was just like another level I need to get my game to so that other players would give me, I could almost put too much pressure on them that they had to let me in. So yeah, next few months were like just knuckle down, really work hard. But I was getting into more and more financial pressure. I remember during this time, this was the first time since I grew my bankroll that I had to start changing my lifestyle. And I started going, right, Adam, stop spending money, stop going out for dinner so much, stop living the lifestyle, low expenses. And yeah, basically it was 8 months of playing basically the best guys in my format almost every day. So finally I got in. So that's probably 2 months were really scary, where I thought I could go broke. Are you okay with that? if I do go broke, what do? I take a stake and deal for some friends and play lower. Can I live with that reality? Yes, I can. Okay, let's go. And then go on with it. And kind of similar mindset to what Kayhan has said throughout this podcast, kind of just trusting yourself and going for it. And sometimes just going, right, get knocked down, get back up again, get knocked down, get back up again. So a lesson I learned through that was basically being resilient, backing yourself, and keep going, even when it gets tough. Keep going and putting the work in. And over time, nothing can last forever. So if you bang against a door long enough, at some point, someone's going to answer. You're going to get into that door. So yeah, learning resilience over that time was definitely a big lesson. So I want to get back to your story, Kayhan. I've been listening very patiently from the sides, and I really want to piece together your career journey and the lessons you've learned along the way. I can see a fearless character, someone who likes to take a lot of risks, but I want to go back to the start of your career. I think we'll jump in at a good point where you went pro. So you can take us back when you decided to take poker professionally. I know you were studying and playing a little bit live around 2015, you mentioned. Can you take us back to the moment you decided to go pro, and what were your expectations going into poker?
Okay, so the thing is, I was studying economics, and then that's when I was talking about 2015. And then after a while in this period, I started like winning a little bit. I started like, okay, maybe I can do this, maybe I can't, blah, blah, blah. And then I went back and forth many times. How are my parents going to react? How are my friends going to react? And all of this. And then it came to, I just got like almost like a revelation, I would say, at the end of, maybe like mid-end of 2016, like, okay, summer is over, everybody's going back to school, am I? You know? And then instead of going back to school, which I was supposed to because I already signed up, I started playing live poker at these games 16 hours a day. And I mean 16, 17 hours a day, every day, just playing. And I went busto maybe, I would say like 3 times during those 5 months. But I had some very good friends there who would always like give me like a very small, not like a huge loan, but like a loan again so I could get back up. Because every time this happened, I would be very motivated to get it back, you know? And then I started working. I got a job on the side. So like, okay. So I got more stability. Not much, but a little bit. But then I started like taking very high variance routes. Like in the beginning, I was just going busto back to like, let's say 1,000 US because I was playing a 1-2 game. So I did this a lot of time. And this, when I would say my breakthrough, like kind of breakthrough was like maybe 2017, like mid 2017 when I started, okay, now I have like 50K US. But then the partying came, and then, you know, the degen lifestyle. I was surrounded by like very bad environment, I would say. I was gaining a lot of weight. I was not feeling very well. You go to like a zombie mode kind of when you're playing this much, because I was playing nonstop, 16 hours a day. If I wasn't working, I was playing. This is exactly what I did. I woke up at 6 p.m. every day, between 4 and 7 p.m. every day. This is just like, and I was living with my friend from Norway. His name is Christopher, and like he was living with me for 5 years, and he would just say he never saw me. I didn't see my friends for, I would say, between 2016 till beginning of 2018. I almost didn't see my friends for like almost 2 years. Birthday parties wouldn't show up. Nothing, which I wouldn't show up to anything. Only thing I went to show up for was Christmas. And I went back home to my family for Christmas. And after Christmas Eve, like the same day, I would go play. Like I was like super hungry. I wanted to learn. I just like every day I was just learning something new. I couldn't sleep well. I was just thinking about poker and how can I do this better? Like I was getting obsessed. While some people like develop like degeneracy for money, I was just like developing like, okay, how can I get better? How can I do this? Yes, I was pounding hard with the bankroll and everything, but I was just like learning in the process. Like every beatdown I took was a great learning experience, you know? And this is maybe what's different from me to others. Like people might there were certain points in my career, like I was depressed, but still I managed to get something out of it, you know? I wasn't living a good life. I was like playing every day. So I think my real breakthrough was like when I moved to Oslo in 2018. I started playing these 5-card PLO apps on the computer. And in the beginning, it was like going very bad. Like I was losing a lot of my net worth again, and I was a lot in London, there were some Norwegians living there, and I learned poker with them, and I started playing MTTs, no limit cash, and 5-card PLO. So I had a big spectrum, you know, and I was winning in all formats. So after a while, I started learning, okay, maybe if I play a little bit of everything and try to learn everything, and in softer games, I can build up my net worth. Because I understood at some point I need to have some money and stability, because in 2018, I was 24, you know? So I was, yeah. And then I started going to LA at the Commerce. I don't know if you guys heard about the LA Commerce. It's like a huge no limit team. They have 6, 7, 5, 10 games running every day, and 10, 20. I went to Commerce with 30K, I remember. This was either late 2017 or late 2018, I'm not sure, or early 2018, I'm not sure. But it was in that time frame. I went there with 30K, and I came back home 3 months later with 130K. So I made like 100K on 510 in like 2-3 months. So I finally had some money, and then after that, I maybe went busta 1 or 2 times more until the end, like I would say right before COVID started, like 2020. So I was just going back and forth, playing PLO apps, playing online cash. I was losing on 500 Zoom like from 2018 till 2019 by learning, just like by playing. I was losing a lot, but I was losing. And then I started learning, okay, why am I losing? What am I doing wrong? I need to go learn something. And I've always been a lone wolf. I've not been like, I had study partners, nothing like this. I've always been like, learn by my own. I had some friends I was talking poker with, obviously, but yeah. So I remember this is like when the breakthrough started for me. I went to LA in the beginning of 2020 so I was playing 500 Zoom there right before then, and I was becoming a winner in the game, like 1BB, maybe 100. So I had like 50K. I went down there to play 510 and 1020 when it was running, but the problem with that game, it was 10-20-40, so you had to buy in like 5K. So at that point, I was like, okay, I won 20K on 510. I'm gonna take a shot now. I'm just gonna go for it. I ended up winning like almost 200K on 10-20-40 in the span of 1 month, because the games just got super juicy. And then I had almost 300K to my name, I would say. Then I got invited to a 100-200 game at the Hawaiian Gardens, which was a private game. And I was better than the lineup for sure. There was no, but I had a big ego thing here. I was like, I'm the best player. I'm gonna win against him. Blah blah blah. And I remember selling 50% to 3 guys I've met from the UK at that time in LA, because they came from Macau, and they were like very financially stable. They had a lot of money, and Macau shut down because of COVID. And then they came to LA to play, and then I told them about this opportunity, and they bought 50%. And I just got immediately dusted. Like I lost almost 75% of what I won from my own share back to them, like immediately after. And then COVID came. I came back to Norway with 60K. I had to go back. And then I rented my basement at my sister's place. And I decided, okay, it's now or never. Now I just have to start, because now, like, I started a company. I'm going to pay my taxes. I'm going to do everything by the law, by the book, because I'm officially a professional with stable. And then I started playing 500 Zoom, which the Wacko knows a lot about, because we were playing infinite hands against each other. I was playing 14 hours a day. Every day I was playing 4 tables of Zoom, and I would even mix in some 2-5 reg tables and 5-10 reg tables. And I was just playing. And I would say those 6 months, I was playing between 400 and 600,000 hands. I was playing so much, and I began to win a lot, and I was steadily like staying at 510 now and grinding 500 Zoom on the side, and yeah, and just doing this. And then early 2021, I was making my jump to 1020, and then I got knocked back down to 510. Then I decided to play some tournaments because my good friend Espen and those guys were playing. It was Scoop 2021, I think. It was at the end that I was decided, okay, I'll play a few tournaments. Then I ended up binking a 1K for like second place for 70K. And then I was like, okay, fuck it. I'm going to sell 50% of my 10K Scoop and play the 1K main and the whatever. And then I ended up chopping the 10K Scoop main for 800K, which was like huge bankroll booster. I just got like 5x, 6x, no, maybe 4x of what I had. And then after that, I just like, okay, now I have enough money because I had to give 50% away, but I had enough money. And then I started playing 1020 and some 2550. I was getting slaughtered at 2550 again because every time I used to jump up, I always got slaughtered back down to the stake I was at. It was just like, it was getting very frustrating. And then I got into Bobby's room game at Vegas because I decided, okay, I'm going to go to the WSOP. I have 500K, but first I'm going to take a trip to LA. Again, with this insane win rate, I just win 130K at LA in 2 weeks. So we had to go to Mexico first because we had to stay out of the Europe for 2 weeks to get into the US for some reason. So we went to Mexico with 2 friends. And then I got to Bobby's room and I didn't sell 1% of my action, and I played 151-2 or 1-2 or whatever it was, and I just lost like immediately like 400K. And just this is the closest, yeah. So I haven't been busted in a long time. Like I've had low liquid, but fortunately enough, I've been smart enough to have assets since that time. Yeah. So this was like, I would say that was a very low point for me when I finally like, oh, this is me now. I'm gonna make it, and then and this is like 2 years ago. It was like I didn't lose close to all my money. I still had a good portion, but it was like I finally had a big chunk of money, and I just ended up losing a lot of it right after. And then I started playing. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, I'm curious to dive into how you perceive risk. As I've been listening along, there's so many opportunities where you've taken on like a high risk option. You've almost like put your role on the line in a high variance scenario and almost got like slapped in the face or a bad result as a result of that, but it didn't deter you. If anything, you just came back and took another risk and another shot, another shot. So I'm really curious to know how you perceive risk and how you go about taking risks. You mentioned earlier you need to have a risk to reward premium. So tell me through like how you're making these decisions in your career as you're going for these kind of big shots and putting a lot of your role on the line. A lot of players would be like, wow, I could never put myself in that situation. How were you able to take on that risk, and what was your kind of framing of how you could deal with risk?
So the thing is, when I was playing this game for the Bobby's Room game, while I had a shit ton of money now, I was like, okay, I can go away from here with like 2 million or go away from here with 200K. Okay, if I have 200K or I have 500, 600K, what's really the difference? But if I have 2 million, it's like, if you have 2 million, you have a lot of money. You can start taking that big of a risks anymore. You can just like stabilize your life, buy an apartment or two, and just take it easy and play 10-20 and have fun. But just like, if you do this is way better for your life in general. But the thing is, would I really stop at 2 million? This is the thing, though. I've always been, not always, but in like the later years, I've always been like, okay, now I have this. What do I do with this? What do I do now? I put this away. I buy something nice. I buy an apartment. I try to stabilize my life in case things go to shit, which is a like very, very, very low chance of now, which it could have been like, yeah, I've been lucky in my life. When I needed it, it's always like came to me. Maybe it's not like luck. Maybe it's just like determination of like, I want to do it. Maybe, I don't know. It's hard to say really, but yeah, it's been a journey. Like, it needs to be some risk. I need to have some like, I need to have some skin in the game. Like, I've always been like that because I don't feel it's like smart to like try to be like the cautious guy, because you'll never, you might get somewhere, but You need to have like feel like it's something is burning under your feet, or you're just like doing something to make your life as good as possible. Yes, sometimes you'll get slapped in the face. That's just a part of life, you know. You can either let
Yeah.
it break you or just continue. You know?
Yeah, it sounds like you have a very investor's mindset. And although it can seem reckless at times when you take big shots, you're actually very calculated and you're taking time to go, I've got this money available. If I get this outcome from winning, this will set my life up this way. And if it goes this way and goes badly, I can handle it. So I'm curious to know how you balance when your risks don't pay off. We could use the Bobby's Room example. That'd be a good one to dive into. What do you do the next day or during that time when you take a risk, you take a big shot, you've spent years building your role to a certain level, you take a big shot with it and you go back down to where you were a few years previously. How do you deal with that? What are some of the things you learned from that experience that set you up to have success going forward?
First of all, I take a break. I don't play because my biggest issue has been mindset issues. Like when I'm like losing a lot of money in a short period of time, I don't have, my head won't always stabilize. It's gotten way better, but before I remember, oh, it was so bad. Because if I was losing a lot in a period, I would just lose even more on like tilt, like just losing my mind basically. Just, yeah. I still have some times it happens, but not in the same way, no. But yeah, I take a big break. I reevaluate, I regroup. I try to study, I try to play lower stakes for like a small period of time when I'm after the break, like because I'm rusty and everything. Even Rene, I was playing 2-5 with him like 3 weeks ago because I've been like in a 2 months break. I do the same every time. When I'm taking a long break, I try to like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. I gotta reevaluate, you know. It's just like on big downswings, I've seen a lot of like good people like just like lose all their money because of one big downswing because they just never group, you know, and they go back on stake and then yeah, and the same cycles happen over many times, you know. So I think my trick is just to take a long break, focus on what's good in my life, and just see like this is all because of poker. Like, look, I have a flashy new apartment in Oslo. I'm gonna buy my second one in 6 months. I'm 29 years old and like I have 2 apartments in like one of the most expensive cities in the world, you know. It's like I just look at these things I have a healthy family, I have a good family, I have good friends, you know. I try to like look at what's good in my life just to recoup, you know, just spend some time with them and just be grateful, you know, just to be grateful. Sometimes you gotta be grateful and just like, okay, I had a rocky period and then we fight again, we go again, you know. This is what we do.
You mentioned that your mental game was one of your biggest opponents. What did you have to do to work on your mental game? What are some of the specific things you had to do to improve that?
Actually, I must say my ego was my biggest problem. I had a like I still have an ego for sure. I still have an ego, but the hardest part for me was like losing when I felt like I didn't deserve to lose, you know? It's like I would win in like the toughest games, like tough games, I would win. But when I got to like very good and fun games where I should be like, I thought I was like, I'm gonna be a big winner in this game, I always got demolished, you know? It's just like, and I think that was a way of mindset. I was like going there expecting to win, you know? And as a poker player, this is like the biggest trap. Like going there expecting to win is like a very big trap. Yes, you can expect to gain some EV, but going there to expect to win is like a very cocky, big ego thing to do. And this was the thing I used to do. Now, I would say like these last 2 years have been like a big lesson for me, many ways. Like I've been low on liquid and been this and this, but I've never been even close to bust though, you know? And this is like, and I can always like look around, look, this is mine, this is me, you know? I have so much of this because of poker. Instead of being ungrateful and expecting and like demanding to win, you just like, okay, I didn't win today. Maybe I'll win tomorrow. Maybe I'll win next week. Who knows? But you know what? I wouldn't have anything of this if it wasn't for poker. You know, you just got to like sit down sometimes, be grateful, and how many cool people I've met. You know, it's just like a lot of good things that came to my life since. It's like it's very hard to do when you're like losing a lot and just like I think this has been my biggest weakness, my ego maybe, and it like it correlates with like the expectations of winning and this, but yeah, and the mental game, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm curious to know how you were able to address that. Let's say you noticed this kind of entitlement when you're playing in softer games and expecting to win. Now it feels like that's no longer an issue. What did you have to do to address that? I'm guessing this was a bit of a recurring problem for a while. What are some of the things that were helpful for you in overcoming that part of your ego?
You know, the funny part is I got to give a lot of honor to my sister, my big sister. She was like, because she's the one who made me aware of all this, you know? It's just like, look at everything you have. It's because of poker. Like, look, like, just look around. Why are you stressing so much? Because I was like very stressed and I was very annoyed and I was, yeah. And, you know, the way I addressed this, it was like, okay, this is poker. It's variance. It's going to hurt you. It's going to slap you in the face. Sometimes you can play your best game, you can make the best decisions, and you still won't win. But this is what I learned. Like, it's easy to say, but it's actually harder to comprehend than people would imagine. You know, it's like because in other sports or like other games and things, variance is not a big deal. It's not a huge issue. But in poker, like, it is a big issue. Sometimes you gotta lose, and then win. It's like, it's very hard to understand. Even though I've been playing poker for such a long period of time, it's still hard for the mind to like comprehend, because money is stability and stability is comfortability, and this is what most people want, you know. And when this gets shaky, it does something with you. It's hard to explain. You got to be in the situation. But I'm assuming you had the same experience when you were playing the stick and goes, when you lost 75%. You know, it's just, it does something with you, and you get knocked down. Either you can just like lay down, or you just like get back up and try again. You know, this is all we can do.
Yeah, I think it's something very primal, how we link our resources, money in particular, to survival needs. So when resources are threatened at any time, it almost takes on a primal nature. We get really activated in our physiology. We want to fight back. We want to do something to protect ourselves, because we don't want to go broke and lose this valuable resource, so to speak. So yeah, I think when you throw variance into the equation there, and it almost like skews everything that's going on. So your results coming back aren't accurate in the short term, but you're trying to make sense of it. And then something that's really valuable to you is going down and down and down. And all of a sudden the mind starts freaking out. So yeah, I think there's so much to work on in terms of your relationship with money, your relationship with winning, your relationship with losing. And almost everyone who gets into poker has these issues at some point. They have to come to terms with their ego, come to terms with their emotions. So it sounds like for you, this talk with your sister, getting more gratitude into your life, being appreciative of what you're going through. I'm curious to know, when you had less in your life, like let's say when you hadn't achieved the success that you currently have, how did you maintain confidence during these kind of failed attempts, let's call it, when things were going badly, when you're taking risks? Because I know for you, you're kind of picking yourself up and going again. But I'm wondering, like, what are you saying to yourself during these periods to remain confident that you're able to turn this around? Like now you've got a track record, you've got a lot of success around you. But in the early days, how do you keep your confidence to keep taking risk again and again and brushing yourself off?
So this is the thing about me. Since I was a kid, like, I mean, a young kid, I've always learned things like very fast, you know. I've never been like a big homework guy, but I just understand things in like very quicker ways. I find shortcuts, and this has always been like my MO since I was a little kid. I was finding shortcuts, and I've always gotten better at games than most people. Or if it was football, like, I just learn things faster. But this also makes me like very entitled to things, you know, like I don't work as much as on things, you know. It's like a gift and a curse thing, you know. And this is the thing, like, it's good in some ways, and it's very bad in some ways, you know, because you get entitled to not do as much. And then am I answering your question now? I feel like I'm railroading it. Okay, yeah. No, so this level of entitlement has been like my biggest opponent, because I feel like, okay, I'm better than him, I can do this, I don't need to do anything, you know. But I'm learning faster than him, I don't need to do anything. But this is not true, you know, because there are probably way many more smarter people out there than me, and people are learning way faster than me, and they're working twice as hard. So how am I going to stay level in the competition? obviously I'm gonna fall low down like on the bar, like because I'm not doing anything. And this is just I just understood at some point, like the last, like I said, the last year and a half has been like a big thing for me. Like this level of entitlement has been going down. Yes, I'm still struggling with it sometimes, but like I've also understood like you're not better than anyone. You are a person as well. And if you're gonna go around underestimating all of your opponents and all of the people around you, at some point you're gonna fall. You're just gonna and I think this was the problem I had like mid 2019 till end of 2020, like the level of entitlement, you know, like I deserve this, I deserve it, I don't need to work for it, I deserve it, I've had it way worse than him when I was growing up, I had it, you know, it's just you feel like you deserve something, but you actually don't. You don't deserve anything. You know, everybody has had a bad time. Life sucked for many people, you know. It's I don't deserve more than him or him. I deserve what I work for, and that, you know, finally it took me a long time, but maybe it comes with the age. I just learned, okay, this is your life. You can choose to like feel bad for yourself, or you can actually do something about it, you know?
Yeah, I think it highlights something very important of it's good to have confidence in yourself. It's almost good to have a little bit of an ego at times to back yourself, but that can quickly go into overconfidence, entitlement, and feel like you deserve something. So as you were speaking there, I was writing down growth mindset. You've got a growth mindset. You think you can learn, get better. And you also almost like identified yourself as someone who is smart, learns quickly, quite talented. So you've got like kind of two things going on, which can complement each other, but they can also create problems. If you think you're talented and you're good at something, all of a sudden you expect to win. And when you're not winning, you're like, well, why not? I'm the talented kid. I do things well. But if you pair that with a growth mindset, which as I've been listening to you speak the whole conversation, a lot of things learn by doing, always how to play good opponents so I can learn from them. It's all this like this growth mindset around I learn by doing. Whatever my current skill set is, it doesn't really matter because I can get better by the act of doing this, and I pick things up quickly so I can get better. So yeah, I think for you, your kind of confidence is coming from your ability to learn. It's high rates, but also in tough lineups and tough competition. I think some people who are maybe struggling to apply this kind of concept for themselves might not have that confidence that they can learn in the same way you can. It feels like for you, put you against anyone almost in the world, you're like, I'll definitely get better. I might not beat this guy exactly, but I'm gonna get pretty good at this game. So you back yourself. So in terms of what you do to learn, we don't have to go super specific, but I'm curious to know what helps you in learning? Because you mentioned you do learn by doing. You're not the guy who sits the solver. You're the guy who plays tough opponents and you learn from them. What do you think allows you to extrapolate knowledge from good players where other players might play the same games as you, but not learn at the same rate?
So the thing is, when people play better players, they're very focused on playing their best, you know? I'm always focused on playing my best as well. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I'm also eager to find out what they're doing and why they're doing it. Because in the beginning, when I was playing poker, the level of entitlement and everything, oh, everybody was bad and this and that, and you know, you're just hammering on everybody. But instead of doing that now, the later years, I've been like, okay, this guy's better than me, so he's doing something right. You know, it's just I let go some of the entitlement and some of like the ego issues. I still have it 100%. I still do have it for sure. But instead of doing all these things, I just like, okay, if some player thinks I'm bad, like whatever, let them think it, you know? I'm just trying to be the best as I can be and like the best way I find it correct. Like I'm using the solvers for my own as well, but in the spare time, I'm also like trying to see what people do. I rail games where you're playing super high stakes and try to see, okay, why did they do this? And then I go check it through and so, oh, it was actually pretty good, you know? And this was not something I expected. And there, boom, I learned something, you know? And this is, I think my biggest quality now is like trying to like understand what other people do. Maybe they're better or worse than me, you know? It doesn't matter that much, but like if they're doing something right, I want to have it in my strategy too. I want to have it in my arsenal, you know? Because the only thing I can do is grow as much as possible. It's not like, yeah. And my financial situation is like very stable. Like I'm right now, I don't need to stress that much about money. I don't need to play every day. I can choose when I play. And this gives me like, I'm feeling very calm now, which I wasn't like maybe before, you know?
Yes, I'm getting a lot of curiosity when you're playing in tough lineups in particular. And the opposite of what you were saying before, in these lineups, you put your ego to one side and you're like, all right, what can I learn? What are these guys doing? What can I implement into my game? It reminds me of sports and how some people or players in particular are very good against the best competition. They'll play their A game. And then they play like a weak competition who they expected to beat and they'll lose because they almost like get complacent. They drop their standards. And I'm not saying that's exactly you, but it sounds like you rise to the occasion against tough players because you don't care that you're not necessarily winning in the short term. So I think this is quite a hard thing for players to realize, because I'm sure some people listening, maybe a lot of people listening, will not be able to put themselves in tough lineups when they know they're the worst player. But for you, it seems like you don't really worry about that because you're like, right, well, I'll just learn loads. If these guys are amazing, let's get my pen out, get my notepad out, time to learn. So for you, do you feel fear in these moments? Like, let's say if you sit down to play, whether it's David Jones or Linus, do you feel fear when you sit down to play, or are you just excited and curious when you step into challenges like this?
This must I say, this is one thing I must say. This has been one of my strengths. I never give respect to anybody. Like I don't care who you are. Like I've been playing with like Phil Ivey, Patrick Antonius, all of these like top dog, like big. I never give them respect. I treat them as who they are, and I treat them as an opponent. And if they're a good person, I'm willing to talk to them and respect them in that manner. And then poker wise, I tend to not have fear, and I just do what I think is best. Look, if I have to run a big bluff, I'm running it. I don't care. I'm sure the whole poker community can vouch on this. Like if I have to do something I feel is right, I will do it, no matter the money online, whatever. So now the thing I do now is like I don't put as much money in risk as before, which makes it I'm even more afraid of losing other people's money than my own, which is like a weird mindset, you know. I've gotten actually maybe not afraid, but like oh, what is he gonna think? Is he gonna think I fucked up? You know, this is a bit like, yeah, it's hard to say really. It's hard to explain, but yeah, I feel more worrisome about losing other people's money than my own. Like this, I feel way worse about that. You know, if you know. I don't know if you can correlate, but or you understand. But this is the way I feel. Like I don't have fear. I would say I always do what I think is right, and for sure I'm probably wrong 100 times a day. Who knows, you know? But the best thing I can do is try to give my best and be like as focused as I can, and do well by people who either invest or like have faith or whatever, you know. And I try to do my best every day. And this is all I can do, really, you know. We all have limitations.
Yeah, I think a big thing for you as well is your kind of scorecard of winning and losing isn't necessarily money related. It's not like, did I win the session? It's, am I learning? Am I getting better? So for you, let's say you were playing a tough lineup to really good players and you were losing against those. Let's say your strategy was lacking behind, but you felt like you were learning, even though you're kind of costing yourself EV or you're costing yourself playing against these players. How would your mind frame that as a win? Because I know a lot of players get anchored to money. They get anchored to, am I winning? Am I losing? And when they lose, they almost like can't see the lessons they're learning. They can't see it because they lost on the financial scorecard. It feels like for you, that wouldn't even be a factor. So for you, how do you frame maybe short-term bad results as a win long-term just by learning from those opponents?
So this is the thing I was talking about earlier. You remember I told you about like I was losing on 500 Zoom in the beginning, but then I started winning, you know? And after I started winning, I just said, fuck, maybe I learned something by playing all these hands. Okay, I was losing a little bit, but look at me now. Now I'm earning 10 times as much, you know? And at the end of COVID, I was winning 6.5, maybe 100 on 500 Zoom, which is like super sick, you know? It's super good. And then by losing all that money and that learning experience, that made me like a big winner. So I looked at like, okay, short term, this is what happens. But long term, okay, so short term I'm losing, but if the future EV is going to get me like up there, isn't it really worth it to just like give away something here and then after you like I said, talk to Renee about like the big picture. The big picture is like very important for me. It's like I don't look at things in a vacuum. Like it's not like this. It's like this. This has always been like my mindset about everything. Like I always strive for efficiency and like try to do as like easy as possible for both me and people around me, you know. I don't want to, let's say, yeah, I don't have a good example right now, but just like when I was doing my homework when I was younger, I would always like copy like the things I found very boring because I knew I wouldn't find the time to do it myself. So the efficient way to do it, I would just to be like copy or just ask a question and then get the answer. You know what I mean? It's like because if I knew I knew my limitation was laziness, so I found a way to like, yeah, compensate kind of. You know, it was like a quid pro quo. They would do this for me, and I would do that for them. You know, it's like I would almost change, like, you know, because I was always like semi good at some things, and they were like good at the boring things, and we would just change. It was just like it was like a business approach. You know what I mean? Kind of.
Leveraging your skill sets and then finding shortcuts or efficiencies for maybe things you're not good at or not interested in. You mentioned the big picture a few times, which I'm interested in. How do you keep a big picture, or more importantly, what is the big picture for you? And where do you think other players maybe get a bit short-sighted and don't see the bigger picture?
I've gotten these questions from before. Like, actually, my mother asked me this because I always tell her about the big picture as well. And it's very hard to like elaborate what I mean, but like the big picture is like you started here, your goal was here, and you try to end up here. You're like, this is like the picture, you know? And if you have to go like through bumps on the road, this is just how it is. You start somewhere and the end line is here, you know? You got to find out when am I going to be happy? When is it over? When is it good for me? When am I in a good place? And the thing is, for me, if I look back at me for like 5 or 6 years ago, you know, I would never imagine I would be here right now. You know, it's like it's very hard to see from down there, but when you're up there, it's like, wow. The thing is, if I had to go through that journey again, and I knew it was the same, I would do it for sure. Like it was just a part of way becoming the person I am today. You know, it was just a part of my journey. And I think what I mean about the big picture is like you just try to see the end. Like, where do I want to be? How do I want to be as a person? And did I reach my goal? And no, it wasn't always the best. Maybe it wasn't the best way to do it, but would I be the same guy I am today if I didn't? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so it sounds like understand, like zooming out and looking at like the big picture of like what the ultimate end goal is that I'm trying to achieve. And then as you're progressing towards that goal, checking in and realizing I'm making progress towards that. So this is good. Even the small progress is good. Checking in to go, right, I've actually come a long way over the last year, 2 years. Remind yourself of the journey that you've already came on. And then also giving yourself a little bit of credit for, yes, I'm making progress, I'm moving towards this goal, and almost like that feed in the system, and remind yourself why you're doing it as well. I think it's important, your motives for going down this path. And then also on that journey, realizing that you're growing as a person, you're becoming a better version of yourself on this journey. So I think all of these things kind of encompass the big picture, which I think is it's such a good way to think, because the big picture should always override the short term. Like if the big picture is on track and you can connect with that, short term is just bumps in the road, just ups and downs. A roller coaster goes into a dip before it comes back up again. You can override that if the big picture is clear. So has there been any times in your career where you almost lost a bit of hope, or you maybe got a little bit too caught into the short terms, and you had to learn a lesson to get back in touch with the bigger picture?
For sure. Like what I was talking about, like so the thing I do now, I'm railroading a little bit just to get back to the point after. Now I tend to like prioritize using my time when I have time on social things, my friends, family, and everything, you know. And before, when I had the short-sighted goal, I want to have this much money, I want to do this and this and this, you know. You just, you know, you go into a state of depression almost. You just like you focus on nothing, and like, yeah. And the thing is, you're not really happy. And if you reach your goal and you're not even really happy, was it even worth it? You know what I mean? And this is what I think I was doing, like when I didn't have, so I was playing 16 hours a day, and I was putting in the work, man. People think I was just laying down on a beach somewhere. I was putting in real work. Like I hear my friends complaining about working 7.5 hour job a day. Dude, I was like, I didn't have a life. Nobody saw me. I was just playing, you know? And I wasn't really happy, you know? This is not why I started to play poker. I started to play poker because it was interesting. It was complex. It was like fun, you know. And the thing is, I think the last years I've found like back the fun in it, you know. And this is what keeps me motivated now, because if my motivation was all about money like it was before, what would I do now? I wouldn't be happy, because I have it now, you know. It's like you're not happy anymore. And if you're not happy while doing something you're supposed to like, how are you going to keep the motivation up? No, then I'm going to get back to entitled. I'm going to get back to this and this and this. You know, it's like, and for me, it was never, it was never about the money. For me, it was never about the money. The only reason I needed the money, it was to take care of my future family or my family, and giving the people I love the most everything they needed, you know? Because I'm not going to say I had a poor family, but I couldn't just choose wherever I wanted and get things I wanted. Like it was, so in a weird way, I appreciate the money, but I don't appreciate the money. You know, it's like, for me, it's like always been better to give than to get. This has always been like my MO. Just see the smile, because for me, I have everything I need. I don't need anything else. But giving like a gift to my mother, or like doing something good for a friend that might not be in the situation he is, or something like this, like it just makes me very happy overall. And for me, it's more important to be happy than to have a gazillion dollars. This is just
Yeah, I think it sounds like for you, it was really clear that you got into poker for the fun and the enjoyment. Then at certain parts of your career, sometimes you get too zoomed in on the success, the money attributes, but that was never the game. That was never the goal that got you into poker. The longer you focus on that, the more you get unhappy, miserable, your life starts sliding a bit because you're too narrow with your focus and you've lost track of the big picture of what you're doing. So for you, it sounds like you've come full circle up and down. There's been a lot of turbulence in your journey, let's call it, but you've come back to that where you started, that kind of fun, the enjoyment, doing poker because you enjoy the game and you're curious and it's a fun thing to do. So yeah, I think it's a real good story and a really good life lessons for anyone listening to remind themselves of the bigger picture for themselves. We've all got our own goals. I'm guessing we all want to be happy. We all want to enjoy our lives, have fun as we're on the journey, but we all have achievements we want to have as well. So remind ourselves of the bigger picture as we're playing these small games of success, of money, not getting too caught up in them while still trying to optimize them for a better life. I think that's a great lesson for the audience.
And you know, like just like a bonus thing, like it's way easier to do something well and good and like earning more money if you actually like and enjoy it, you know? If you make it to something like you're obligated to do, I have to wake up every day to do this, because in the system we live in today, you're very like, you have to do this, you know? And for me, I've always known like, this is not for me. I've always known, like I forced myself into some things, like even to my, like I didn't want to go start the economics degree. I did it because of like the peer pressure of like the society, you know? It's just, but I knew something one day, I don't need a boss. I want to be my own boss. I want to do this. I want to have my freedom. Yes, people think I'm lazy. I don't do enough. But trust me, in my periods of time, I work harder than I would say 99.9% of people, you know, but they just don't see it with their own eyes. It's just, but that's their belief and I don't really care what people think about when it comes to this. I just, okay, but if you're working that hard, why are you not achieving the same level of success? You know what I mean? It's just like, they're just trying to like feed their own egos, like saying he's less because he's doing that. But now this is how it started. But now everybody sees like, oh, wow, he's actually working hard for this, you know? And this, it's not important for me what other people think. It's important for me what my family and friends think, because everybody's going to have their own opinion. Everybody's going to say something. And yeah, this is just how the world works, man. It's like a lot of gossip and this and this and this. But what really matters for me is like the people around me. Yes, I like all people. I'm not saying that, but I was just like, yeah, the level of like entitlement I used to have, maybe I tend to see it now in others too, but it takes one to know one, you know what I mean? Like they want to think they're better than you because they have a normal job or this and this. And yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, you've probably been encountered the same way before.
Yeah, I think for yourself as well, it's like other people put their own kind of judgments onto you. If you've got this freedom, this kind of happy-go-lucky lifestyle, people are like, well, you can't have that. Like, you're not working hard enough. You're not suffering enough. You're not grinding the same way I am. But behind the scenes, you're doing your own thing. And you've, like you said, you've probably worked harder than a lot of people in the past, but also from a place of enjoyment. I think there's like kind of, sometimes we give too much of a badge of honor to kind of working hard, when in reality, we generally work our hardest when we want to, when we're curious, when we love what we're doing. It's like, is that really work? If you want to spend 10 hours a day studying poker because you absolutely love it, is that really a work shift, or is it play? Is it enjoyment? So yeah, I think for yourself, you've got this nice interplay between kind of work ethic, but also play and fun and enjoying it, and the kind of the almost merged to the same thing now, where you do it because you want to, and fun and work is the same game.
And yeah, that's the thing. I wake up with a smile around my face. You know, some days are tougher than others. Okay, I lost a shit ton of money yesterday, but I still wake up with a smile and be like, wait, dude, I look around me and just, I feel happy, you know? I'm not, yeah, before I wasn't, but now I am, like, because, and it's not because of the success or the money. It's just because I had a goal and I reached, like, I'm not saying I reached my full goal, but I reached some parts of it, and I'm still young, you know. I'm 29, you know. Like, many people use way longer time to reach that level of success than like people like us, you know. And then it's fun, and I love to get some recognition for it, yes. But what really matters for me the most is like people around me, like, oh wow, you're super sick at this, congrats, and I'm super happy for you, you know. You're just like genuinely happy, because some people might be jealous, some people might be this, but people who are genuinely happy for you and have been through all parts of the road with you, those are the people I appreciate the most. You know, it's not the guys who like slandered me because I started or whatever. You know, that's what I appreciate the most. Like, yeah, being happy and being, yeah, just when I play, I'm not like feeling like it's the job all the. Yes, sometimes it's super boring. Yes, but which job isn't? You know.
Yeah, I think as well, like, it's remind yourself of, there's only a certain amount of relationships that really matter to you. It's your close circle, it's your family, it's your immediate friendship groups, and everyone else, they have their opinions on what you do, but you don't really care about them. But if you really think about it, you don't care too much. It sounds like for you, you've got a nice point where you're happy with yourself, the people around you are happy, and they're happy for you, which is a rare thing in a lot of circles. And as you mentioned, like, no matter what you do, there's an element of repetition, getting good at it. And actually there's a lot of fun in repetition when you get really into the weeds of something. There's something like the intricacies of learning something at a high level are fun in themselves. So yeah.
Hi guys, Rene aka The Wacko here with a quick Mechanics of Poker 2.0 announcement. In our program you will get access to 80 plus hours of content in which we will explain you all aspects needed in order to become a more successful poker player. Now, one of these, of course, is the technical aspect of the game, in which I'll be explaining you all the mechanics behind poker strategies. We'll be talking about GTO, exploitative play, with an extra focus on the why behind certain strategies and why the population has certain leaks. And to increase your win rate even further, we've recently added a river bluff and bluff catching section, so you can increase your EV when those pots become very big. Our mindset and performance coach Adam Carmichael, he took care of the mental game and performance section of this program, in which he will teach you everything you need to know in order to break through limiting beliefs, better handle your emotions, break free from tilt, and play your A game more consistently. And last but not least, we've added the management and optimization section in the program, in which we will give you various tips and tricks to make it more likely for your poker career to succeed, and how to continuously improve as a poker player. Now, on top of that, this concept is continuously evolving based on feedback and suggestions we get from our community. Next to all this content, you will have access to our exclusive Discord community, monthly live Q&A calls, and one-on-one coaching session in which we are going to be reviewing if you have been implementing the stuff that we teach you in the Mechanics of Poker correctly. So do you think you have what it takes to master the mechanics of poker? Go over to mechanicsofpoker.com and maybe you will get a chance to work with me and Adam and make more progress in your poker career. But for now, without further ado, let's get back into more goodness in today's episode.
Rene, I want to ask you, in terms of big picture thinking, I know you're someone who likes to see a wide perspective of life overall. How do you keep your eyes on the bigger picture, so to speak? And what is the bigger picture for you at this stage of your career?
Well, that's an interesting question, Adam. I would say at the moment, if we're talking about in this specific moment, bigger picture, it's more, I look more towards things outside of poker. If we're talking in poker, I kind of don't really have something that I'm necessarily going towards. I'm more interested in, yeah, things outside of poker from a social perspective. Soon to become a father, family, these kind of things, life
Congrats.
experiences, this kind of stuff. That's more what my current bigger picture is. Yeah, so to be honest, I find it a bit hard to answer this question at this exact moment. If we talk about from a career perspective, obviously we're always trying to, yeah, improve our, for example, coaching skills, our poker skills, but it's not the main focus at the moment. Maybe just because, like I said, that I have some things happening in my private life that draw a lot of my attention, and then probably after that, I will have more space to think about, yeah, where I want to go with my life. But I definitely think Kayhan gave a lot of. I think he gave like a little throughout this 2 hours. I hear like a masterclass of the like sort of a quantum physics 101, how to become successful. I hear every time abundance, being not in a state of lack, focusing on the things you're grateful for. These are all like quantum physics ways of acquiring success. And I definitely feel like if people had the idea of you that, oh, this guy, you know, he's late, blah, 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 I would say if they now hear how many shots you take, how many fills you take, how many times you put yourself out there on the line, I would say it's fair to say that you've deserved the success that you now currently have, because many players who will be listening and who maybe had that thought of you will be like, well, did I put my money together and just jump in a game where I was pretty sure I was an underdog? No. Did I took that risk where you said, well, I can win 2 million, or I win 2, or I go back to 200K? What's the point? I'm pretty sure the majority did not take that risk, right? So I think if you look at high risk, high reward, the classic, you deserve it, right? You took high risk and you got high reward. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
congrats to you.
yeah, I appreciate the kind words. Yeah, like the thing is, like I tried to say, like it's not all about the money. It's just all having some skin in the game, being confident, and try like challenging yourself. Like because it's very hard to stay motivated if you don't challenge yourself. You know, it's like if you're gonna stay in the same lane for long enough of a time, you're gonna get bored. It's gonna be like a automatic robot, like a lifestyle where you could just have a normal job instead. It would be the same. Like if you don't challenge yourself and expand and try to like different things, like I was playing No Limit for many years, and then I started playing five-star PLO, and I tried to have a mix, you know, if just to stay motivated and do things that are different, and try to, yeah, just try to learn more all the time. And I'm still hungry, you know. And at this fall, when I was playing the biggest like games all around, and just like playing like super, it didn't give me anything. It didn't give me the dopamine, or it didn't give me anything. But just like it was super fun. Don't misunderstand. It was a lot of fun. But when you lose and you get knocked down, knocked down, knocked down, knocked down, things are not that fun. You need to have like you need to have something that always builds you back up. And then for me, struggling with motivation is when you just feel like you're not good enough, and it does something with your confidence when you're losing a lot of money. It does something with you. It's wow. I don't know how many poker players I've talked to, but they're just like, wow, should I just give up or this? And I've never had that thought, like maybe once or twice throughout the 7 years, but I've never been like, should I just give up or like this and this? I've always been like, I know this is something I want to do. Just pull it back together, take a break, and try to enjoy life in the same way as you were talking about. Like sometimes you need to focus on your life too, because if it's all about poker the whole time, you're gonna get crazy eventually, you know. That's how it is.
Yeah. So how does the like reflecting again on the question that Adam asked, like what's the bigger picture? How does the big picture also change for you? Because I feel like I mean, when you grow, right, you might thought a certain thing was very important at a certain stage of your life, but then later you find that something else is important. As you grow, your perspectives grow, your experience grows. So the big picture keeps on changing. The overall big picture, I think you use the word happiness a lot, right? like what gives you happiness might change. So what you then focus on to acquire happiness, or what at that moment gives you joy, changes. So I feel like the big picture is always, that we live, that we have nice experiences, have a good day-to-day life, be quote unquote happy. Even though in the previous podcast someone labeled that as a fluffy word, happiness, but let's just use it for the sake. The end goal, the big picture is always happiness, but I feel like the smaller goals is what kind of experience or what can I put my time in that could lead to a little mini happiness that leads to the bigger picture, which is overall life satisfaction. Let's call it that way. So we have happiness, and then the bigger picture is the overall life satisfaction. How does that change based on, obviously 3 years ago, what you considered to be a useful experience for your bigger picture is maybe different than now?
So I've always been a believer in working hard. Like, not always, I'm not going to say always, because I was a lazy guy before. But the thing is, if I like something, I get super obsessed and I like to work. For me, it's enjoyment almost. People will call it work hard. For me, I enjoy the process. But the thing about me, I've been traveling so much. And I think I started traveling again now, beginning of August. But then I was home for 3 months. And my friends were saying all along, like, I can't remember the last time you were home for this long, And for me, I'm still gonna travel, but the thing is, I was so happy at home home in Norway. I love Norway, man. This is why I don't move for tax reasons or whatever people would say. I don't mind paying it because I love Norway. I'm close to my family, friends, and this gives me happiness. This is good for me. It's like it's a balance in life because you're playing poker, you're fighting every day. It's like very competitive, and then you get back to some stability. For me, this is like a level of balance which keeps me like, it keeps my foot on the ground, and this for me is happiness, just seeing my friends, and because these are friends I've had for like 20 years. It's like, and when you're back home, when you're traveling, you're missing out on birthday parties or my friends having kids and this and my family going through things. It's like, for me, finding this balance has always been difficult. But I remember after EPT Monaco, I told myself I'm going to do less of the traveling. I'm going to shorten the travels. I'm going to focus more on what's good for me. I'm going to start working out more. I'm going to focus a bit more on myself because I've been giving so much of myself to poker that it's time to like reevaluate, try to reward yourself a little bit and try to like get some balance, because poker is, I love poker. Don't misunderstand. It's just, I also love myself.
Yeah, it can consume you, right? At some point maybe at some point you spend so much time in it that it kind of surpasses the bigger picture goal.
Exactly. And then there are some times where it's going to be more intense and this and that. But
I do feel like you need to go through a certain phase where basically poker is the big, short, medium picture, everything, right?
Yes, you need to go through that process. You need to find out how it is to grind, because this is the part of the learning process. Everything, it's everything you did. Just remember, if I could go back 10 years and see, no, let's say 7 years and see how stupid I was, it's just, I probably wouldn't take it back because I probably learned something and probably made me to who I am today. I couldn't see those things before because when I was playing poker, I was by far the youngest. Everybody's been playing for 10 years. I was always the youngest. I'm still kind of the youngest in the high roller scene, but I'm feeling like I grew up in a certain way where instead of like trying to show off and trying to gain some respect, I don't care too much about it. I care more about building friendships. And I know we're competitors at the poker table, but like being nice to people is not like yes, some people will dislike my gimmicks at the table. I'm sitting there trolling people in 100K where it's just like nobody would ever do this. Like me and Sam Grafting having fun, just like talking shit and having fun, which I would do the same in a 2K. It's like,
yeah, you don't play it any different.
No, I try to, like, for sure, strategy wise I play way different, but my table manners will stay the same because I just enjoy the social concept around it. Because if everything gets too serious now, my motivation might slack off. It's like, because
I get it, and especially with your experience, right? You want to have fun. Actually, when I was in Vegas this summer, and I saw, what's her name? This chess Botas, the streamer,
Oh yeah,
chess streamer, and as she was playing 2-5, and then someone says, "Why is she playing 2-5?" And I was like reflecting on the social aspect of the game. It was like a Friday night, 9 o'clock. She was playing 2-5, and I was playing 10, 20, 40. And I was like, if I would sit here from a fun social perspective, probably you should sit at 2-5 the way the 10, 20, 40 game is at the moment. So I get it. Right? It's also you want some, like, the money factor doesn't really matter for her. Like, she can play fucking 200, 400, 500, 1K or something, or 2-5, but that's not why she's there.
So the immediate irony of all this, like, usually there will be more serious and more robotic behavior in a lower game than a super high game. This is like the irony of the
low game is very social, then like the medium end becomes a bit like serious, and then very high becomes this is what we talked about earlier. A 10 NL hand becomes like a 10K NL hand. Well, a 500 NL table live can look like 500K NL table live, right?
Exactly. And this is like the point. Like, okay, I can sit there and grind my ass off, but for me, this is not a thing I want to do for like a long period of time. This is just, I've been through all that. I've done it.
And also
I don't want to.
That way would cost you way more energy. At least now you can, it also comes way more natural for you. But when there's a nice survivability table, you also get more energy back, right? It's like, oh, it's a more enjoyable experience. And okay, fuck it, everyone headphones on, and the time doesn't pass by.
Yeah. And I for sure use my headset too at the poker tables when there's like a very serious point of the tournament or the cash game where like people are like this. But at most of the time, I'm trying to like make the experience both fun for me and for the people around me, because this is why we all started playing, because of the complexity and fun it is. It's like the social thing, and like this, it's easier to keep yourself motivated and use less energy on it if you're actually having fun.
Yeah, and then you get the energy back. You mentioned that even you, when you lose, you get a hit in confidence. How does a lack of confidence impact your game? Like, how does your game look different when you are in low confidence and high confidence that you noticed?
I get very self-critical. Like, I've become very like, am I really that good, or is this my entitlement? And like, because I've had this like mental game problems before, like very badly, and then I get very self-critical. Can I really do this? And then there are points in my career I just start feeling very bad for myself, but luckily I just like get out of it fast. It's like a 1-2 day thing. I just like feel bad for myself. I get like, but luckily now, and then I just started thinking about, like I said, what my sister told me once, like, appreciate the things you have around. Just appreciate it, and just remember where it came from. And like, this lesson helped me a lot. Like, and she said, like, if you don't like it anymore, don't do it. You're not forced.
And in terms of actual, when you're playing, for example, if you're low confidence, do you maybe not make the bluff or fold a little bit more, or do you have no problem staying aggressive?
So this is a thing that's very easy to say, which I can't say with 100% confidence, but I would say it does affect me a little bit. Yes, of course. I would say I would not be a human if it didn't. But I think in some sense it affects me less, because I like I said, the money has not always been the thing for me. It's like been like trying to really believe what I do is the best solution to the problem. Because if you look at it, like, you have opponents, you have a problem, and you're trying to solve it, correct? And then that's what I've always been like, I'm trying to find a problem to solve. Okay, maybe it didn't pan out this time, but in the long run, this is going to solve the problems way more times than the other time, And this is the way I've been looking at it. So I think for sure it does affect me. I wouldn't be human if it didn't. But I think in some way, maybe it affects me less. I can't say that with 100% certainty, but I would say like the most financial stable poker players would suffer less with this problem, because money is a huge motivation for most people. Like, money does affect me a little bit. I'm not going to say it doesn't, because it does, for sure. It does with everybody. I just think like these things affect me a little bit less than maybe general population of poker. Maybe I don't know. Maybe
No,
it
that
doesn't.
makes sense.
Yeah.
But like
so,
also like for example, because yes, we're solving puzzles and yes, you're just trying to make the best decision. But then, for example, if I talk from my experience, you see the variables, but it's almost like when you're low confidence, your first thought is sort of right or your gut is sort of right, but because of your low confidence, you don't trust it as much. And then I can suddenly think of something else or like, yeah, intuitively, I think this play is good, but I'm not sure because, you know, I'm a bit low confidence. I will just do what is quote, quote, normal. It's
yeah.
kind of like, I would
y-
say there's less creativity involved in my game if I'm low confident than if I'm high confident, where I'm way more trusting my gut and be like, oh, fuck it. I know
yeah.
this is quite YOLO, but hey, I feel like it's good. Let's do it.
Yeah, that's the point. Like, if you ask some of my friends, they'll like poker friends, they'll tell you I'm bipolar at times because sometimes let's say 1, 2, 3 days, 4 afters, after I can just be like, ah, I'm just gonna grind it out on 5-10 and 2-5 and just chill out. I don't think I'm cut out for this. And then 1 week later, they see me on 25, 50, 50, 100 again, and just like, hey, what happened to the grind? They're like, ah, I was like, ah, fuck it. I think,
Who
you
was
know,
I
I can,
kidding? Who was I kidding?
yeah, just like I can get low confidence, and I'm like, who am I kidding? I'm way better than this and this. And this is like the good thing about my entitlement, maybe. Like, just maybe it's the good sign. Like, yeah, it annoys me a little short while, and then I'll get back on my horse and just like, this is where I belong. I just gotta stabilize and just be prepared for whatever happens. You know, it's just like, yeah, I can become a bit bipolar on this. I'm gonna admit it, and my friends will say the same thing.
I think just the nature of poker kind of pulls out the bipolar tendencies in people because of the swings, right? You if you have just a normal steady day to day, you don't have the ups and downs, so your bipolar character maybe comes out less than in poker, where you can suddenly get a rush of winnings, dopamine, you feel like a fucking king, and then the opposite also happens. So I think naturally poker players, yeah, they will show a bit more of the bipolar tendencies that I think everyone has to a certain degree inside of them. I was also wondering, you mentioned that every time you move up to the step, you will get slaughtered, okay,
Yeah.
and then pull back down. What in your if you reflect, which jump in stakes was the hardest for you, and why was it so hard, and what were kind of some leaks in your approach towards the game of poker that you had to fix to establish yourself at the next level?
10-20 to 25-50, without a doubt. This was just like impossible for me. For some reason, I was playing mostly the same opponents, but I was just getting slaughtered. And I found out like my biggest leak was I was over bluffing against guys who would overcall. Like, this was like the biggest leak. And I would continue to do it because in my head, it was the correct thing to do because I've been so used to it, like just hammering over people. But then at some point, I realized, like, okay, these guys are going to call me too much. And then what is the point? Like, you think it's good, but maybe you should reevaluate and be like, and this took me like 3 or 4 times before it happened. Like, yeah, it's just, and after a while, after like a year, I was like, okay, maybe I'm doing it wrong. Maybe I'm just like, I'll go check. And then I just checked and I was like, ah, maybe I do bluff this hand too much. And it's like, oh, I go check the solver. Ah, it's not that you're not supposed to bluff it that much. And then I became like, okay, if I'm not supposed to bluff it that much and people overcall me, maybe I shouldn't bluff it at all. You know, this is like, and
So
this is like
what was it like, hands that people started showing up with? So you would like call and they would be a call with a hand where you're like, maybe they're overcalling.
There was, I have one example of this. This happened after, actually, after I realized this. But I was playing 464 Daryl Go on 100, 200 on heads up on GG. And we've been playing some heads up, like, and I think we're like pretty, I think I'm up a little bit in buy-ins, but he's like winning the most money because he's been crushing me on the bigger stakes. But then he was like, yeah, there was this one hand where he opened the button, I called the big blind, and the flop was like 10-9 deuce, and I had 9-6, and I went check call. Turn was an ace. I went check, and he went B75, and I made a big raise with like middle pair. which is like not a thing at all. But I thought like maybe he was just like, yeah, I was just trying to like make, because I felt like he was betting like mergy with these types of hands, like this, like
Yeah, you
yeah,
put the mergy hands. If he folds some equity, that's fine. He sometimes calls worse, sometimes folds better. Yeah, I can feel you, man. I can feel you.
yeah, yeah. So I raised and he called, and the river was like an 8. So like my bluffs is gonna be like queen jack and jack 8 and 7-8, right? And then I ended up like thinking, okay, I beat jack 8. I beat 7-8 if he still has that, which is like
sick merge. Let's get it in.
yeah. And it was not like a merge. Now I decided to make my middle pair into a bluff on the turn. This was like the whole point. I was making it. I was doing it because it's a fold on the turn. You can't call. Call is like the worst option here. So I ended up jamming, and he went through his time bank, and it was like, and he had like 10 seconds left, and he ended up calling kings. And then yeah. So then I went to check this. I think Yuri Peleg or something released a video of this hand. So the thing is, like, so I ended up bluffing this hand against a guy, which I still have this, like, because I talked with him in Vietnam about this, and he was like, yeah, you bluff too much. And I was like, yeah, I do. It's like, yeah, that's why I call. And like my hand was not a raise, and his hand was like a pure fold. And then we the thing
but
is,
his hand becomes a pure call if you raise 9-6.
Correct, exactly, and that's what we were discussing. Like, and I just got like very self-aware. Like maybe I'm just trying to outplay people too much, and then this was like a syndrome I had from before. Like I was trying to outplay everybody every time instead of, especially people like kind of respected, like in their poker skill wise. It's not like I give them immediate respect and fair after. It's like, yeah, just so I ended up like this hand was just like, oh, dude, I bluffed too much, and then I just quit the session, and I was like, I gotta work. Now I'm falling back to the same trap. Like, yeah, I'm trying to outplay everybody instead of playing like the best form of poker I know.
Yeah, and then outplaying someone, which I guess then goes naturally. Sometimes, like I usually say this to people who maybe sometimes fight too much for pots, and especially versus opponents who don't fold. Like I said, usually I think it's a good approach, but then they confuse sort of winning the pot with making the plus EV play, because if you're aggressive, you're going to win the pot percentage-wise more often, but it might be that you're making a minus EV play, which is, correct. It's really weird, because winning the you can make a play that will never win you the pot that's higher EV than making the play that might win you the pot a certain percentage of the time.
Yeah, you're winning.
You don't get the reward.
Yeah, you're winning a bit in red line, but you're losing more in blue line, basically, or the other way around. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and you mentioned red line, blue line, so I'm sure you can relate to this. Of
course, yeah. No, so this was like the big leak I had. Like I was just trying to outplay everybody. Like maybe people I respected more, or like hero call more against them, but I think I've gotten way better at it, and it's just been like, but it takes some like self-exploring. Like you gotta be, it takes some self-exploring, and it hurts your ego to like realize, and then working on it. It hurts because you've been sticking to a system, it's been working for a long time, and now you have to like change it. You know what I mean?
And the ego can definitely blind you in a spot like this from the information, because the ego would just say, wow, that call with kings is so bad. And it will stop the reflective process. Yeah, exactly. It stops the reflective process. Well, again, it's like, under which circumstances is kings a good call? Reflect on it. Are these circumstances actually present? Do I want to admit that they are actually present? And then you look up maybe in the solver, it's like, okay, yes, I will definitely be over bluffing here. So if there's a spot where I'm over bluffing and someone makes a light call, I'm like, yeah, okay, I got owned here.
Yeah, that's exactly. 2 days after I realized, like, damn, yeah, maybe I understand why he called now. And then because he had that perception of me, and it wasn't wrong at all. It wasn't wrong. And then I talked to him about it, and then he was like, yeah. But yeah, he's like a fantastic player also. Obviously, he's a big time crusher all throughout the years.
Yeah, it's about time that he comes on the pot, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, maybe I'll shoot him a text and say you're a decent guy.
you nowadays also play a lot of MTTs, right? The high roller, especially this year, you've done very well. If you had to choose between cash games or MTTs, which one would you prefer, and why would that have your preference?
I think cash games, the flexibility, the work whenever I want to situation. I wouldn't be forced to play during the series and Sundays, and I don't like to be forced to do anything. I just don't like the ultimatum thing is just like so annoying. I just don't like, oh, you have to play this Sunday because or else you can't play before next Sunday, or you have to play every day during the series. It feels very forced, you know?
And that removes the fun out of it.
Yeah, and that removes the fun out of it. Exactly. And then I try to play a mix of all the things, and then whenever I feel like it, I play. And then, yeah, during the scoop, I play like maybe 2 days or something. Whereas I have friends who play every day and just grind it out, like really hard workers, obviously, but then they take vacation for like 2 months, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I
yeah,
try
yeah.
to like keep it a bit more stable instead. And then, yeah,
So it's mainly from a lifestyle perspective that you would say cash games, not necessarily from a
yeah,
interest in the strategy.
So yeah, it's like I don't know what you mean about strategy, but it's like
No, so like for example, if you look at the just purely playing a tournament towards playing cash games, like from how much it intrigues you strategically,
that's what you mean. No,
how the format intrigues you.
No, I actually do enjoy the strategy of tournaments too. I think it's very interesting. It's very complex, and in the beginning, I was like trashing MPT players, but now I really have found like a big respect for all of them. They're soldiers, and they really, wow, they some of them play really, really well. You know, before I was like, wow, I think they all suck. You know how cash game players are. That's how we do. Is just like, yeah, they all suck, and we're way better, and blah. It's like a competition thing, and to my surprise, they're all very, very good, especially in the higher roller scene.
Yeah, I was gonna say, obviously in the high roller scene for sure, right? Bigger feuds obviously attracts also more semi pro, or more recreational players.
Yes, and this is the thing. Like, I think the EV you gain from playing tournaments is probably higher. I think instead of battling regs on the highest stakes on cash, but also like you meet a lot of cool guys. Like many of those guys who play tournaments are really nice and smart and cool guys. Like they really are. And everybody thinks it's so uptight and blah blah blah, but it really isn't. They really are talkative and friendly and making friendly bets and talking about random things. And well, sometimes in like a 25-50 game, it might get live, it might get very boring and robotic, and everybody's like there to play.
That was my general impression from the limited amount of time I played live. Obviously, there are some exceptions. Some guys are naturally more social, but I wouldn't say if I would go there to have fun, which was actually definitely part of my motivation to go. That part was only a little bit satisfied. Now, it did help because people would start talking to me because they recognize me. So I guess that would be a conversation started. So I had more social interaction than another guy that maybe would sit down at the poker tables. But yeah, that was definitely from a live perspective a bit disappointed.
Yeah, understandable.
I was curious, what is the worst advice you've ever been given, or that you think is popular advice given by the poker community that you strongly disagree with?
This is a tough one. Wow, this is a very tough one. Maybe being too strict with like bankroll management is like trying to lock up way too much too early. Like being very like, let's say you're beginning of your poker career, you win like 300K, instead of having your belief that you can continue to rise up the stakes, you just like lock up 200K and just stay in your lane. This is something I would say is like a very bad advice in general. Instead of like trying to progressing and getting better and better and trying to get some respect and confidence and trying to like improve and make progress, and these things are very important for every person, because it's very easy to say like this guy's a luck box and this guy's a luck box, but if you if you just try, I think it's gonna work out way many more times than it isn't. Like,
Mhm.
I think people are a bit too afraid, maybe.
Mhm.
I think it's like everybody doesn't have they don't need to have like their foot on the gas the whole time. Like maybe I did a bit too much, but I feel like people are very like they're trying to like show off by saying, "Oh, I don't do this because I'm very strict with my money, and I don't buy this because I'm trying to take care of my money." Okay, but what is the point of earning a lot of money if you can't use it on things you like?
Have we gotten too responsible as poker players?
Yeah, it's like I think the way it has become is like people have seen like a lot of players gone busto and like just you don't see them again, and then they go way too much over to the other side, kind of.
Yeah, because I definitely think that, you know, for example, started playing poker, what, 13 years ago or something? Some
Yeah.
extra responsibility on the average poker player was not a bad idea. But like you're saying now, maybe we have now surpassed that point to a certain degree that, you know, you should only play on a table with a fish. You should only move up if you have 100 binds or something like that. Or yeah,
Yeah.
a bit more cautious advice based on indeed all the people that have lost the
I
battle.
think it's I think it's more about the fear of people knowing you lost a lot of money and the way they will look at you, kind of. You know what I mean? Because let's say money is like a social status thing, you know, and
Let's say hypothetically.
yeah, but it for sure is, and people will look down on you if you have like less money, kind of. And I feel like at the poker table, people feel the same way, kind of,
Mhm.
you know. And I've tried to like not talk about much about money and these things. People are very curious, and then this is like a very personal thing. Like my closest friend, I tell them like this: I'm gonna do this and this, and this is something else. But like, I don't think it's anybody's business. I don't think it's like I don't think it's cool that people would ever do this. I mean, some of the guys I respect, like I see a lot of like newcomers, like they similar of me, but maybe a little bit more responsible. Uh, these kids like are good kids. Like I see from Norway, like I'm not gonna name names now, but I talked to them yesterday, and then I'm gonna start a study group with them and try to help them achieve what they want and buy action when they want to sell. And this is something I take pride in because I want to help people do the right thing. Like these are younger kids, you know, and they're trying very hard, and I've been there, and I wish I had the same type of person that could help me when I was there, you know. But I was always a lone wolf, and then yes, I for sure had some friends who I talk poker with, and they helped me a lot. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying like having like a kind of good role model in poker is like it can be very important for their progress. And if they do well, I might do well buying action. You know, it's like a you help me, you scratch my back, I scratch yours thing, and I enjoy the process because and maybe I'm a bit like I'm striving to be very empathic or whatever, but I, those are the things I find like enjoyable because seeing people progress. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to become like a coach on full time, but I feel like if I know them well and they're Norwegian and they're young and they're hungry, it's like, and I can help them a bit. That would be like super awesome.
Yeah, I mean, and how the coaching experience is for the coach is very much dependent on the type of students you have on. So if you're just taking on a bunch of students, you will have a lot more bad experience. But if you feel sort of intrinsically motivated to help people who reached out, probably they have certain characteristics that of people that you would like to help with, right? You feel intrinsically the motivation to try to help them out, and if you can share some of your knowledge, like you did today, like I'm sure there's going to be so many people who are going to listen to this and take motivation from that. So how does that feel? That you're motivating
You
a
know,
lot of the listeners?
in a strange way, it feels very good because I feel like if I can help somebody become better, that's of course very nice. It's like many people don't know these things that I've said to you now, so it's going to be like a shocker for people who hear it the first time. But the journey wasn't always easy. You know, it's been a struggle. It's been hard. It's been tough. It's been mentally tough. But you know what? I'm here today, and it's like I think it's defined me who am I, who I am as a person, and I really enjoyed the process when I think back of it. It was like when I was in the military, the first 3 months was living hell, but when I think back at it, it was like, wow, it was actually super fun, you know?
Yeah, a lot of these experiences shape you in a certain way. In hindsight, they were always worth it, but in the moment, sometimes you feel like, why the fuck do I keep putting myself in these kind of positions?
Exactly. It's like,
Right?
what the fuck am I doing here now? I should be in school or something. This is just waste of time, you know? But at the end, you just like, if you really want something and you work hard and you push on, most of the times you will get there, you know? It's like, but it's confidence is like super vital. If you feel like people around you are bringing you down and these things, and then, I mean, sorry to say, but most of the times they shouldn't be in your life. It's very bad for you as a person. Support and confidence and like love from the closest ones you have is very important for every person. You know, you need, sometimes you need to lean your head on a shoulder or something just to like relax, because you're gonna get a lot of like slaps in the face in the poker business. This is
Yeah,
just how
and have someone like, for example, you mentioned your sister, to tell you that everything's going to be okay and look around you and just change your perspective when you're feeling down.
Yeah, and my brother too, like in the beginning he was very skeptical, but now the last years he's been super supportive and he's showing it to my nephews and nieces, and they're all like, my whole family is super supportive, watching every time. Like these things, they help me, they want to make me better as well, because I want to make them proud of me.
Yeah,
Kind of,
and
you know?
especially to your nieces, nephews, you're sort of now an example, right? So
Yeah, so this is just super cool, and all my friends are watching and then sending me pictures and laughing, and it's like super, like it's super cool. I must say, it's like I don't like the attention too much on this, unless like I get the support. Like it's like the support just makes it 10 times easier. Like
yeah, I mean, to have other people celebrate with you. So how was it? Because I know that very recently you finally won your first trophy, right? You played
oh
on the high
yeah,
rollers. You meant second, fourth, fifth, third, second, first. Finally, how did
yeah.
that feel then?
Dude, it was such a relief, I must say. Dude, if I had lost one more time, I would, you know, it does something with you. You're just like, I need to win this trophy. I've said it in all higher, I need to win one of these trophy and bring it back. And just like, it was something I had to do, you know? This is why I started playing MTTs, to get this trophy. Like, just show like my family something. This is something I got. Like, this is something I'll probably have for the next rest of my life, you know? This is what I did. Like, this is some type of accomplishment. It's not about the money. It's just like I was a winner, you know? For them, it's
I
like,
understand you don't have that in cash games. We should introduce like quarterly leaderboards where cash game players can win trophies. What do you think? Like a
yeah,
first
yeah,
prize,
that's a
second prize, a
great
medal
idea.
or something. That would be amazing.
Yeah, but GG would probably be up for it. This is like a
All
super
right,
cool
I'm
thing.
gonna get in touch with GG straight away. Say, okay,
Yeah,
we need to start introducing
yeah,
some
because
trophies.
cash game guys get too little respect in today's community. It's like all about the tournaments, but man, some of these cash game players, like especially on the highest stakes, they're super super sickos, you know, and they start playing tournaments and just start crushing. They're just super good.
In the past, probably before your time, you used to have a site, Poker Table Ratings, and there you could win badges. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it was kind of similar, and you would chase like a certain badge, like, oh, I finally have this badge now on my profile, and it would really give like some sort of motivation. I think actually stars as like a badge that shows how many hands
Yeah,
you have. I sometimes see like 2 million.
yeah.
I have on purpose, like I'm a 500 hand player, you know, I have like the opposite, but sometimes I see guys 10 million hands, like what the fuck.
Yeah, we
So
can see with the EPT title and everything.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So they're already
yeah.
thinking about something like this, and I definitely think I think it's definitely good. Let's say, for example, they could have like the guy who had the highest aggression factor over the last quarter. That guy should also get rewarded, you know. So you can
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can make it a bit more fun, I think, for us cash game players, because yeah, in the end, you don't get a trophy. I mean, I would love a trophy, to be
Yeah,
honest.
but cash game players don't get enough recognition. This is just how it is. It's just
I mean,
like
it also makes sense, right? I mean, tournaments are way easier
for
glamorified
marketing.
to the marketing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Then,
So
for
it's
example, if you tell your family, hey, I'm on the final table, and they can actually look at it and some sort of enjoyment, but hey, I'm playing in this live cash game, like nothing happens.
yeah,
Did he win already? No,
yeah, yeah. It's
how does
yeah.
this
They
work?
don't know what's going on, man. They're just like
Yeah.
the funniest thing about me being on TV. They're just trying to coach me after. This is like the best part. They're just like, oh, why didn't you do this? I was like, yeah, but you can see the cards. It's kind of easier for you, you know.
Yeah. Oh, really? That helps if you can see the cards. Oh, does that give you a
Coach,
biased opinion? Oh, really?
yeah, so this is like, but you know, the support and everything is great, and my friends around me, everything is it's super cool, and it's yeah, I'm really enjoying the moment. Yeah, no, just like the last year or something, I've really been enjoying myself, and I feel like I'm on a good path to like not just to become a better poker player, but also like a better person for people around me, and you know, it just yeah, I think character is a lot of like it's way more than poker, you know, if you're like a stable, good person outside of the poker table, it might just help you calm your nerves when you're playing. And you just at your A game way more frequently than you usually would be.
I mean, it's also, and this is kind of what I get from your story is when you have your life in order and you feel great and you go sit down at the poker table and you can just enjoy it because you don't need anything out of it. You already feel good about yourself. That's when good performance happens. If you need poker success in order to feel good about yourself or something like that, then imagine how much is suddenly on the line. And this increases pressure enormously. And usually, the more we are in a state of lack, or like I really need this, the more frustration comes up, and the more actually the opposite will actually happen. So, listening to your story, I think this is definitely either consciously or unconsciously a very good strategy or quality of yours. Adam, I have a question for you as well. We just touched on a little bit. Maybe poker players have become too responsible. In your experience working with players, do they usually have to work on becoming more responsible, or are there some people that kind of surpass it and like, listen, you're being so responsible. You let's say, for example, you have very rigid structure every day, but you're just miserable. Like there's both ends of the spectrum, I can imagine.
Yeah, I think as Kayhan touched on, a lot of players go one of two ways. I say the majority lack structure, they lack kind of routine, they lack being professional, and they're still learning how to optimize their lifestyle, so to speak. But then you get the other guys who go way far the other way, and they're so rigid, so by the minute, and everything's in a structure that they need to loosen up. So my kind of way is, if you're the over-structured person, you generally need to work on creating more flexibility, laying almost like being more relaxed. But a lot of players are still working on creating that structure. And I think sometimes you've got to play with extremes. I think if you're someone, let's think the average poker player, he's generally fairly young. Let's say he's living by himself. He's got very little responsibilities. He's maybe came out of school or a job or a graduate, and he's used to being a free kind of guy. Now he sits down to play a computer game that he likes, and he's getting money involved. There's a lot to figure out to create this kind of person, this avatar into a professional version of himself. So I think sometimes you've got to go almost too far. I think Kayhan has mentioned as well, he's went too rigid, working too hard, grinding too hard. I think you've almost got to play around with those variables and push those to extremes sometimes to find that kind of middle ground. How do you get the most out of yourself? I think the main thing is, how do you create a kind of a workflow or a system for executing your performance, but also enjoying your life? So I think it's that this kind of interplay between the two. So I think it's a challenge for a lot of players. I think most players would be on the under-structured side, but the ones who are too structured, you guys listening, you know who you are, you need to listen up. So yeah, I've got a question to ask, because I know a lot of this conversation's been around learning lessons, and you've been someone who's been picking lessons from all different areas of your life as you've been growing. So I'm curious to know, what's the most important lesson that poker has taught you?
Wow. Oh, that's a tough one. Yeah. I mean, we're on the entitlement thing. And I think in my whole life, I felt entitled. I felt like deserving and these things. And I think maybe poker taught me like maybe you only deserve what you actually work hard for and are passionate for, and like you work for. You're not entitled to more things than other people, like, because it's very easy to feel bad for yourself and feel like I deserve this and this and this, like I talked about earlier. I think my biggest lessons have been like, because I had a tendency to be like a bit like maybe arrogant-ish. I would say like I could be like treating people differently like this, but like I think the thing it taught me, like, treat people the same way and like treat the people the way you want to be treated yourself. I think I learned that by loosening up my entitlement and my ego a little bit, and just trying to be like, because at some point you're just gonna feel like you're way better than everybody else, and you're gonna feel sorry. This is like a circle, like a very bad circle to get in. And in many years, I would say, like, even growing up, I had this problem, and I think, like, finally I'm moving a bit out of it. Yes, sometimes I have it still, but I think it's like in a healthy way now. It's hard to explain, but it's like definitely days where I'm back to normal again. But I feel like I've learned, like, it's important to be a good person as well as a good poker player. Like, it's like it has both things. Like, you shouldn't really reflect on your achievements on other people, like just shove it in their face, or like showing people you have more money than them, or some these things have before, because I wanted to give a big fuck you to everybody who doubted me. It was like I was kind of hurt. My ego was very hurt. It's like, and I think I learned, like, it's only important for what people you care about and people around you think, and just everything else is noise, kind of. So I think my entitlement and my ego, I think everything I've been slapped in the face so many times. I think I learned my lesson, kind of.
Mm.
And yeah, I think that's been my biggest struggle in a lot of my life. And I think now I'm finally getting to a better place. I'm still working on it. I'm not, it's all about progress, not perfection. And then that's what I try every day to do, like try to treat people well and help people when I can. And, just that, actually.
Yeah, I think that fits into your overall evolution as a person. I think you mentioned in the start of the conversation that you had a chip on your shoulder, so to speak, when you started. You wanted to prove that I was wrong. That was motivating you. I can't let them say I'm failing. I'm going to show them I'm going to do it. So this creates a kind of fragile ego, which is trying to prove to others. It almost tries to protect itself with its own constructs. It's like, I'm going to show other people I deserve this. I'm good enough. And very quickly you can create this kind of entitlement, expectations to overcompensate for your almost like insecurity around that. But as you've got more fulfilled, more successful, you're more sure of yourself. You don't need the external metrics. You don't need to prove to anybody. You're much more happy in yourself. And as a result of that, naturally, that need for entitlement, that need for expectations, things go well, is just lowered and lowered to the point now where it's like, it's just background noise. It's obviously still there to some degree, as you mentioned. I think it's good to know that most successful people in life generally have some form of ego, some form of high confidence, some form of I will back myself to get out of a situation and beat competition. There's an element of that that's intertwined with a high level competitor. So you hold on to that, but at the same time, it's balanced. It's in a nice place where it's not toxic. So you mentioned a few times, well, building your character. I love this analogy. I almost think life's a video game and we're all leveling up our character. So I'm interested to know what sort of character traits you feel like you've formed over the years, which you're most proud of.
So I've always been like a joker and having fun, and just like, I've been very like the clown, basically. I've been that all my life. And I think I was being very irresponsible when I was younger. I was very self-centered. I think I was very, very self-centered. I think also I was struggling to find out when I should be serious and when I should not be serious. And I think all of these like bad traits have been turned into good traits. Like, I can be the clown, but I can also be serious when it's needed. Yes, I can be self-centered, but I can also show empathy and try to help people around me. It's like, and the irresponsibility, like, I've never had to think about anybody else than myself and my family. But now I think, like, I try to spend more time to try to like focus what people around me also needs from me, and vice versa. And just like, yeah, just to be good to people around me and not be so self-centered, because there was a period of time I was thinking about nothing else than poker. I was not showing up to birthday parties. I was not like, I was just, my life was poker. And now I think sometimes I can just like say, okay, I'm going to travel home a few days earlier instead. I'm going to play one session less, and I'm going to prioritize this because it means a lot to them that I'm coming, and these are my friends, this is my family. It's like all these things have been like very important for me, like the later years. And I think it's all about like growing up and seeing, like, it's a perspective thing. Like, okay, we have poker and we have a lot. I'm also supposed to live. I can't be just like the poker player all day, all year, you know? And I think these are like the traits like I felt like my character has built all over the years. I was like usually very I'm still a bit lazy, I'm not gonna say, but like I would have like a very not dirty, but I would like it would be not very clean and I would be very lazy about these things. But now I've been like very important to like go work out sometimes, like just not ever go to the gym. That would be like that's what I used to do. I would just play instead and be yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I've been growing a lot since my last years and I was like acting very immature, I would say. At a yeah, I think the last maybe like 3 years I've been like maturing. I think COVID helped me a lot when I had to like self-reflect a lot and it wasn't a lot of social thing. I think COVID helped me a lot. And before that I could be very immature. I could be very like bit arrogant and yeah, very self-centered and be like I'm better than you and like you said, fragile ego. And then I wanted to prove myself. And then now that I see it's like these things are all noise, I'm just trying to feed my own ego. And then I try to focus more on the good things in my life and just take care of those things because it's way more important to have good things around you than money, wealth, and status. That's the way I feel it, at least. I just, yeah, I think it comes to a point where money won't make you happy anymore. It just, I'm not saying I'm that rich and that's happened or anything. I'm just saying, how much money do you actually need? You know, how much like confidence boosts do you need from people? How much recognition do you actually need? You know, it's like what you actually need is to have good people around you. And if you have good people around you, it's going to reflect on when you play poker or doing your job or other things, you know? These things have like shine the light on me and like being like yeah I've kind of yeah understood those things more and more. I'm still like I said, it's still progress, it's not perfection. I'm just trying to work on these things and yeah, I think that's been good for me.
Yeah, I think it's interesting as well with you. All these character traits weren't like new character traits that you've developed. You've almost just like fine-tuned the ones you've got. I think that's often the way like life works. We think that things are like good or bad. So for example, like being self-centered, that's good for focusing on yourself, studying hard, putting yourself away and learning stuff. But if you push that too far, you become selfish. You don't give your time to other people or help people. Also being serious can be great in some contexts, but it could also be a negative. You also mentioned being the clown, being the fun guy to be around. Great in certain situations, but you can push that too far. So I think it's sometimes like we mold our character and it's not like black and white or these traits are good, these are bad. We become a version of ourselves that allows us to live the life we want and to fine tune when our character traits become too one-sided, so to speak. Someone's going to create that balance between the character traits. So you mentioned self-reflection, which I was interested about. You said you've been able to self-reflect, especially during COVID times. What does your self-reflection process look like? How do you go internal to look at how you're acting and operating? What are some practices that's been useful for you?
No, so the thing is I had like during COVID I had like a big talk with people around me and this I was starting to get very unhealthy. My life was yeah, you could just notice I wasn't very happy. I was waking up at like 2 3 p.m. again and I'm being very late. And so after a while I moved back home for like 2 months during COVID because it wasn't that easy finding an apartment in Oslo. But then when I moved to Oslo and during COVID, I started working out while I was playing. I was playing a lot and working out, like just focusing on my mental health. Because when you're unhealthy and generally unhappy, it does something with your brain that you don't sleep well, you do bad things, and then you just go into like a bad circle, and then you just make those bad things even worse. But I think like I lost a lot of weight and I tried to like work out and everything reflected on my game after I noticed. Like they say like if you change your way into a life where you're happy, you will also play better and be better and in every aspect. And then I think during COVID, that's the time I was getting a routine. I was going to sleep at 3 a.m. every night and waking up at 11. And I had this like perfect routine for like a year. And everything in my life just got way better after. It was just yeah. So I had a lot of time to self-reflect. It took some time to get there. It wasn't like instantly when I moved in I had to do it, but after some period it got way better. And then yeah, I started seeing girls and I started being like social. And I, you know, instead of like just playing poker all the time and just yeah.
Yeah, I think COVID was that interesting time where it hit the brakes on life, and we all had that time to go, right, what are we doing with our lives? How am I operating? And we had a lot more time by ourselves. We couldn't socialize, couldn't go outdoors, and we did have more time with our own thoughts. So it sounds like for you, you really saw some of the maybe problems you were having with your lifestyle, your mental health overall, and you realized your lifestyle wasn't quite in alignment with the person you wanted to be and your goals. So you spent more time working on that, creating good sleep habits, eating better, going to the gym more, and all of a sudden you were a happier version and performing better. Yeah, I think sometimes we need to neglect our health and almost like watch our health suffer a little bit before we realize, wait a second, our health, mental health, physical health is so important. It drives everything that we do. Our performance, our happiness, our enjoyments is driven by that. So yeah, it sounds like you did a good period over COVID to realign that. So you said earlier that you identified yourself as a lone wolf, which I think you're the first guest we've had on the show who would identify themselves as a lone wolf. What do you feel like has made you go the poker path of learning and studying and improving? Obviously, you've had study partners somewhat by yourself. I know you're a sociable guy, very friendly. Why would you say you have been a lone wolf throughout your career?
So the thing is, I've always had good friends in poker, but I would generally not discuss that much with players. I've had some friends that was asking me to study, join the study, this. But during my time, I was like, I have to do this by my own, because if I know how I am as a person, I'm very lazy. So I'll just rely on what they do and not go through the process myself. I had to do it myself because most of the time it's helpful. Let's say two people go to the gym. It's very common. Like two friends, they go to the gym together and help each other out. I'm like the complete opposite. If I do that, I slack. You know, I know how I am as a person. I start slacking. I start like talking instead. I'm not like a lone wolf in a form of like social way, like with friends or anything, but like when I have to do something, I need to be very focused on doing what's right for me. You know, this is where I need to be self-centered and doing what's best for me. You know, and over the years, it's gotten better. I'm just been like, okay, you do this, I do this, and we see how it goes. We check results and we do this and see how the hands are, and we help each other out. But like during those process years, like I was working on my own. I needed to find my own way, kind of, because I was still young. I needed to like see how I am as a person, see how my poker skills are, and then I could sometimes, like very rarely, talk to friends about poker hands or this and this. But normally, no, I would just uh, most for my own, just like work for myself, and then experiment. I did a lot of experimenting with like cool lines and cool things to do, and then this is I don't know. This is just the way it's been better for me. It's a bit self-centered, yes, but that's what worked best for me. You know, that's
I love that. I think it's understanding that how you learn, how you get better, how you improve. It sounds like for yourself, you're generally a sociable, friendly guy, but there's certain contexts where you actually like to learn and study and go deep by yourself and really think for yourself. So for you could quickly see, like, if you had a study partner or someone to learn with, yes, there's some benefits of that, but also you like going deep internally by yourself. So yeah, I think it's a good self-awareness to figure that out. It's quite probably rare, I think, as an attribute in terms of players being able to have success with that approach. Most players do almost hit a wall. I know you've got friends around you who you do talk strategy with, so I'm sure you're not like fully lone wolf in it, but overall, your approach has been back yourself. I've got the confidence to figure things out. I'm curious to know, like, when you couldn't figure things out, let's say you're having a rough patch of your career, and you maybe you were trying to figure out a strategy to beat a game, but it wasn't really having much success. How did you keep confidence during that patch? And did you during those patches, did you reach out to the players to get some inputs to give yourself some insights?
No, I'm too proud, so I would lose sleep instead. So I would lose sleep, think about it for 3 more hours, and then fall asleep, wake up 1 hour later, and do the same thing, and just annoy myself with it. It's like self-pain inflicted was like super stupid when I think of it after, but it was just like there are a very few amount of friends I reached out to, like Espen and Preben and those guys, like Norwegian and the Joachim and those guys, and 2000 Kilo, which the Renes, and then I would talk some hands with them and tell them about how things were going and these things. But most of the time I would be just like, this is something I have to go through by myself, and I think this is the best way, because I don't want to be like taking advantage of them being helpful and trying to work hard on this, you know. I would feel bad, basically. So Yeah. So I just decided like, this is something you need to do for yourself. You can take it as a man, or you can just lay down on the floor and cry about it. No, this is just,
No, I
yeah,
love
this,
it. Yeah, it's obviously worked out well for you. You found a way to solve your own problems, to get yourself out of dark holes, to figure out the solutions to anything that's came your way over the years. So yeah, it's
and
a
it wasn't easy. And sometimes I've gotten help. Don't misunderstand. For sure, I've gotten help, but only from the friends closest to me and that I trust with this like things. And if it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't be here right now. And I'm fully aware of that. And I've always tried to help them back. And if they need anything, I would always like, it's like you have your friends and then you have your real friends, like good friends. And these type of friends are like the guys I would always help and trust. And, it's loyalty is a very big thing for me. So if I feel like this is going both ways, I would like help them in any matter I could. This is basically how I work. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a close circle around you, people you trust, rely on, can help you with your problems. So though we say a lone wolf, it's more like your approach to strategy was I'll figure things out myself rather than
Yes.
I'll study
When it comes
together.
to poker, yeah,
Yeah,
mostly poker things. Yeah.
but overall, you've got a network around you that supports you. You've talked a lot about like how important is it your friends cheering you on, your family cheering you on. So you've got this nice network in a different way. A lot of players we spoke to have the network in the kind of poker circle. You've got more like a life circle around you, supporting you, cheering you on, which has helped you all the way. So yeah, I want to be respectful of your time. I know we're approaching the 3-hour mark. So final question I have for you is, what would you like to be the main takeaway that the audience goes away from this conversation with?
Oh wow, man! You ask those questions. The main takeaway is to try to have high level of self-belief, and don't like, even though people around you try to pull you down, you just like forget about it. Try to be around good people which like you trust, and they'll helpful, and you can help them, and try to build a community we can make you grow as not only as a poker player but as a person. Because if you're not happy with yourself, you probably won't be playing your best game of poker either. And always try to be serious and focused when you're doing it. Just like, if you do something, do it because you like it, not because of the money. Because if you do it for the money, you probably will get bored of it, or you probably won't reach the goals at all or as fast as you wanted to. If you really like it, you should put your heart and soul into it. And but like, honestly, it's not for everybody. It's tough business. It's super tough. It's super competitive. You play with, I mean, many of the poker players I've met are like the smartest people I know. And these people are smart and they're cool and they're nice, and just, yeah, try to be focused and be ready for a hell of a journey. And you'll get a lot of slaps in your face for sure. This is just, maybe not all of you, but most of you will. And then take it as a learning experience. And yeah, that's it, actually. I don't know. And try to see the big picture. And yeah, a future EV is the most important thing.
That was a great summary. You did a very good job of recapping the whole main topics there. So yeah, I'd like to thank you for your time. I know it's been a long conversation today, and I think it's been very inspirational for everyone listening, following along your journey. It's been far from a straight line to the top. You've overcome a lot of obstacles, but you've done it with a smile on your face, with happiness, enthusiasm. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna listen back to this episode myself and take some lessons. So yeah, thank you for your time. We appreciate it, and yeah, see you soon.
It was very nice talking to both of you, and thank you for having me on. And yeah, it was. I didn't feel like it went that fast. 3 hours already. Oh, nice. Yeah, I felt like yeah, it was very fun. And now I got my story out. I'm probably gonna get a lot of questions, but that's it. So I'll be ready to answer them. And thank you for having me on, as I said, and it was really nice.
That's a wrap. Thank you very much, Kayhanmok, for sharing your wisdom. I really enjoyed this podcast. Adam, what were your main takeaways?
Yeah, it was a super fun episode today. And some of the things I wrote down were around his risk to rewards kind of way he calibrates stuff. He's very much on the philosophy of take big risks, learn to handle those, put yourself in situations over and over again. And when I first got in the conversation, I thought there was going to be an element of maybe confirmation bias, getting lucky with the shot takes. But in reality, it was the opposite. It was almost like everything he tried, every risk he took, almost backfired. And this didn't deviate him. It didn't deter him. He just kept going for it because he's very calculated, knowing the long-term EV of his decisions, and he was able to handle this. So it got me thinking as I was listening, how do you tolerate risk? How do you deal with risk? And one element is a level of acceptance of the risk of, like, when things go badly, can you accept the outcomes that come with that? And then the next thing is, have you got the right coping mechanisms and resources to handle it? I think for him, it was very obvious he did. And he's a very resilient person who, every time I tried to ask, like, specifically, what would you do when you were losing? It was almost like, oh, well, I just brush myself off and get on with it and just go again and go again. It's like this level of, I would just keep going. I'll show up over and over again, which I would call an element of resilience. Either he had that as a trait, or he's built that into his hardware as he's went through his career. Another one, confidence, always backs himself, always has this high belief in himself, which he mentioned as his own takeaway for the audience, having high self-belief in yourself, even when others around you are telling you that you can't. I think it's a real strong one. Another one would be the growth mindset that he has and always learning. He mentioned every time he plays tough opponents, he doesn't really care if he wins or loses. He's there to learn. He's there to get better. He's there to improve rather than make money in the short term, which I think is a real, I think I've heard this like from a number of the guests, like they've got this innate ability to learn from players, but also to score the dynamics of playing. I'm here to learn, not here to win in the short term. I think Sonny was another guest that comes to mind. And then the big picture I thought was really interesting. Just remind yourself of, what is the big picture? What am I doing this for? And for him, it's like the big journey of achieving stuff, but also to be happy, to have fun, and to become a better version of himself on the journey. So I think we went on a very nice story arc. We started off with kind of the joking fun side, and then we understood exactly how we got to where he was and the character traits he built. So I think it's a really nice overall podcast episode, and hopefully a lot of good nuggets for the audience to take away as well. How about yourself, René? What were the main things you wrote down?
Yeah, the confidence thing, actually I quoted myself. I don't know how narcissistic self-centered this is, but the act of confidence comes first, the feeling comes after, I wrote down, which I think I said, not him. That's why I said maybe a little bit narcissistic. But then you also asked him, like, do you have any fear going in? And then he said no. And there were, I think, a couple of reasons for that. First of all, the trust in himself, right? He backs himself. He focuses on his qualities instead of his opponent's qualities. And then when he sees, I think he mentioned Phil Ivey, Antonius, David Jones, or whatever, just realize, listen, I'm playing against humans, okay? They're going to make mistakes as well, but I back myself. I back my strategy. And if reality turns out that actually my strategy wasn't good enough, so I lose, then that also doesn't matter, because then I will learn. And with that new things that I learn, I will come back and eventually I will be a winner. So that's kind of the cycle that he can keep on going through. And I'm sure there's a lot of players who listened with admiration and who have trouble overcoming this fear. So yeah, fear is just going to be part of it. You have to kind of push through it. And the only way to get through fear is right through it, through fear, through it. That makes a lot of sense. Also, he talked a lot about the value of playing against better players, because better players will point you out where you will have shortcomings in your game. And then if you reflect on that, they keep on putting you in tough spots. So you can reflect on your own game. He gave, I think, the example of 464, where he learned the lesson. Well, if I'm over bluffing and someone is over calling, maybe I shouldn't be over bluffing, right? And he saw him calling with a hand that should be a fold, or at least if we just follow the traditional solver. But then again, he showed up with a bluff that shouldn't be a bluff. So who was right? Well, probably in this case, Daryl was right, as he already said. But it's the ego that likes to point out what a bad call with kings, and that you don't reflect on your own play. Like, well, if he calls with kings, under which kind of circumstances is this a good call? Well, if I'm over bluffing, am I over bluffing is then the question. But that's a question towards yourself, which is often a bit harder to do because the ego doesn't really like that. We also talked a lot in the beginning as well about when solvers apply, and that the first thing we have to ask ourselves, against who am I actually playing? Because the more tough your opponent, the more the tree will start to look like the solver, because he's very studied. And I think he mentioned when he plays three-handed against David Jones, Linus, obviously he will follow the solver. But if he then plays live versus weaker opponents, it's just a matter of just figuring out what they have and make vacuum decisions with your hand. We also actually touched a little bit on how then learning changes, especially the necessity when you go play MTTs, because there's so many variables. The tree is so complex. You cannot be so nuanced. And again, like the bigger picture, having a more holistic, not what do I have to do on this board in this specific situation with this stack size, but no, what are general heuristics that I can use, how 10 BB plays, how 20 BB plays, how 30 BB plays. And then from there, with that knowledge, kind of try to do what do you think is correct based on the concepts that you made for yourself in these situations. Okay, we cannot nail everything, right? Poker is a game of mistakes. So if you make a little bit less mistakes than your opponents, you will have an edge and therefore you will win. Nobody plays perfect. All right, they were kind of the main takeaways. Really enjoyed this pod. If you enjoyed this pod, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, leave your main takeaways down below. Okay, our sponsor GTO Wizard will pick one of the main takeaways and you can win a free 1-month GTO Wizard subscription. I want to thank again Kayhanmok for sharing his story and his wisdom with the audience. Really enjoyed it. I want to thank Adam for co-hosting this pod. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Many more good podcasts coming up, so stay tuned. Thank you for tuning into today's episode and see you guys next time.